Hey, Doug. What up? What up, folks? Global consciousness. Free Palestine. Shiny. We're gonna do this today, folks. We're about to rip the Band-Aid off.
I want to be a good boy.
Free New Zealand. Damn. Free New Zealand from I want to be a good boy.
Reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends.
Free New Zealand from Luxon. Free New Zealand from Luxon, Seymour, and Winnie. The Coalition of Chaos. Cock.
So there we are.
Hooyah, Navy! Hooyah, Navy! Hooyah, Navy!
Consciousness.
He should kiss my ass.
Let's go, everybody. We're about to do an episode today. We're about to rip some Band-Aids off today. We're about to rip some Band-Aids off today. You got Band-Aids on? We're gonna rip it off. Band-Aids gonna be ripped off today. You ready to rip some Band-Aids off? You better be. One on the thumb. Gooch. Love it. Let's rip them off, folks. Hey, Amelia. Kia ora, Hussein. Roscoe, welcome. Kia ora, Etefano, welcome. Hi, Ramai, welcome in.
Free Palestine.
Today, we're gonna do it. Because I think this is overdue. Arya, kia ora. This is overdue. I have spoken a lot about leftist spaces and hey Don, welcome. And I've critiqued white leftism a fair bit. I've critiqued the fragility of it all. And today we're going to confront it. Okay? Because I feel like there are many people online who, when confronted with this information, seem to become very fragile. But we're going to do it today. We're going to talk about white fragility and why leftist spaces need to be aware. Hey, Est, welcome. There is no talking about oppression without understanding white supremacy and white privilege. There is no... In today's world, you cannot talk about oppression. You cannot be a leftist without understanding the role of white supremacy and white privilege. Okay? The problem is, when you talk about white supremacy and white privilege in leftist spaces, leftists often get a bit of a ring burn, let's say. They get ring stingers. They hate it. The fragility. The fragility seeps out. seeps out of every pore. We're going to get a bunch of snowflakes in chat who do not understand what white privilege is. We will get a whole bunch of people denying the existence of white privilege and white supremacy. Of course we will. We'll get that in chat because anytime you speak about this, where there is a white audience, you will get this denial. But we know, as people of color, we know the existence of this fragility, this privilege, and this supremacy. We know. We feel it every fucking day. So today we're going to rip the fucking Band-Aid off. I'm sick and tired of people whining about me talking about systems of oppression like white supremacy, talking about racism, people who just can't understand that these things are very real for people of color. It's not woke. It's the reality. It's the reality. So we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. Come one, come all, including the snowflakes. Welcome. Maybe you will be educated too. You will be educated too, snowflakes. Welcome in. This is a lecture. This is a lecture from Robin DiAngelo. If you haven't read White Fragility, please do read it. So many snowflakes have made videos about this lady, tried to slander her, try to go after her. The white community hated this book. The fragile white supremacists hated this book. And there's a reason for that. Because here's a white person, Dr. Robin DiAngelo, who clearly articulated from a white perspective what white fragility is. And she has been slandered by so many. Ben Shapiro slandered her as the worst book ever. When Ben Shapiro slanders her, you know it's good. You know who else slandered her, who I thought was surprising? Norman Finkelstein. Big Norm. Big things. Big things. Big Shack. Norman Finkelstein. Norman, of course, a rabid transphobe. Have to be clear that white fragility can seep its way into leftist spaces. Be very clear, folks, that white fragility is very real. White fragility is very real when you speak about things like racism, and especially people of color when we speak about our experiences with racism. Snowflakes will always come in with their 2 cents. So, let's talk about white fragility. This is a lecture by Dr. Robin DiAngelo. And after this, I'll speak about why white fragility can seep its way into progressive spaces too. And we've experienced this over the last couple of days, where white fragility has made people in progressive spaces, allegedly progressive spaces, behave like absolute bigots. Let's get into it. White fragility, everybody. Bring on the snowflakes.
Welcome, everyone. Many thanks to all who have made this event possible. We had a planning committee that was extremely helpful to our very small department
White fragility. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism.
of 3. Ayana Allen and Jackie Lorenza are buzzing around here to help make this happen. Yeah, do it. I'm Darlene Flynn. I'm the director of the Department of Race and Equity, something that I forget to say. And we are very pleased about tonight's program and that you all made it. This is a really important part of this program. Well, the content you're going to get tonight is pretty powerful. What matters is what comes after. And these folks are representative of just some of the activism that's happening in Oakland that might be coming from some unexpected places. And we need activism. This is a multicultural, cross-racial movement. All successful movements in the past have been. So this additional work that's going on in Oakland is very important in connection to the work that we're doing inside the city of Oakland. We have a couple of governmental officials that I've spotted, and there may be others out there. We have recently elected
I'm just
council
going
member.
to skip forward to the start of the lecture.
That down for us. And of course, in 2011,
This is the intro. Here we go.
In addition to thanking all of the people who worked so hard to make this happen, I also want to acknowledge Marcus Brooks, which is the oldest black store in the nation.
Folks, like and share. If you know a snowflake, share it with them. If you know someone who wants to learn about the subject, share it with them. This is the type of white-on-white education that needs to happen a lot more. Share. This is why the West has done fuck all to stop the genocide in Gaza. This is so connected to all of that.
I want to start with a quote by Ichioma Oluo, who's local to Seattle, where I live, because it helps frame this night.
Rarely ever ask is struggles in relation to whom, right? Triumphs in relation to whom or what. Who am I as I interact across this racial difference? So dominant culture or whiteness is consistently left off the table. And that, again, is only one road in, but it is the road I'm going to take tonight. And so I want to position myself in this right away. I am white. Check me out, everybody. And part of being white is drawing your attention to my race, like I did just now, goes against all my socialization. I was not raised to think of myself in racial terms. I understood that somebody had
good,
race,
thank you, Nasser.
but not really me. And if we're going to be talking about race, we'd be talking about their race, not mine. I wasn't raised to see my race as significant to anything you could know about me. So what if I'm white, right? Well, I'm really clear today, after a good 20 years of day in and day out talking to people about race, I'm really clear I'm white. I have a white frame of reference, I have a white worldview, and I move through the world with a white experience. And it is not just a universal human experience, as I was taught to believe. It is most particularly a white experience in a society that is deeply separate and unequal by race. So while I'm always coming from that position and that perspective, I just want to be explicit about it tonight. And when I say we and us, I'm talking to the vast majority of people in this room and in any room, and certainly any room that has a table where decisions are being made that affect the lives of people who are not at that table. Right? So let me just say a little bit about what I hope will be valuable about this focus for the people of color here tonight.
Let me just also lead this with an experience of mine. As a technology exec in New Zealand, the way I was recommended for a job once as a chief digital officer. This is an exec role in a super well-known brand in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Everyone knows it. Everyone's probably seen it. The way I was recommended to the board by one of the board members is that I will work like an Indian slave. And that was supposed to be a joke. I will work like an Indian slave. Okay? And let me be clear. This is a high-paying role. And the way I found out about it was the CEO of that company a year after I was hired. Me and him, we were having a beer after work, and he told me a year after I'd been in that role. Okay, so this racism, this white supremacy, these subjects have to be talked about, because black and brown people do not experience, especially living in countries like Aotearoa, New Zealand, do not experience the world the same way as a white person.
First of all, what I hope will be valuable is that I'm going to name and admit to things in my short period of time in front of you that white people will rarely ever name or admit to. And if you've ever scratched your head wondering, how do they pull this off? Can they really not see this? And why are they so resistant to seeing this? I will help you with that, because you have to navigate my reality on a daily basis in a way that I'm really sorry to say I can be seen as qualified to lead virtually anything with no understanding whatsoever of your reality. And to be really honest, no interest in understanding that reality. And so I hope that that is useful to you with the gaslighting that happens so often. I also want to acknowledge that so much of what I can articulate.
Yeah, all white people don't experience the world the same way. Not every white person is a white supremacist, but every white person has white privilege. Whatever the scenario, if a police officer pulled you over and you were a black person, your experience will be much different to a white person being pulled over by the police.
Articulate today about what it means to be white rests on years and years of brilliant and patient mentorship from people of color. People of color have been saying what I'm going to say tonight for hundreds of years at this point. And unfortunately, one of the dynamics...
Unless it's a white felon, well, what about if a black felon is pulled over versus a white felon pulled over? Like, you got to understand, when you look at this across everything, across every sphere, whiteness, white privilege is very much embedded into everything. A white disabled person versus a black disabled person. Our society has white supremacy embedded in it, white privilege embedded in it.
Of implicit bias is if you are white, whether you're aware of it or not, you're a little more likely to be a little more open to hear it from me. And so if I can use this position in this way to break with white solidarity, I'm going to use it. Okay? And that invokes the master's tools dilemma, right? As I think that Darlene referred to, right? How do you challenge the master's house when you only have the tools of that house, when you're in the house? So I want to be really clear that I am aware that as I stand on this stage with credibility and authority granted to my voice on racism, no less, like virtually every other teacher or professor or role model or authority figure, I am reinforcing the centrality of whiteness. I want to name that. And trust me, I've gone home many a night and tossed and turned over that. Where I always land is that it is a both end.
The terms black, white, and colored as official racial groups were deeply codified and weaponized by South African government during the apartheid era. Yes. They didn't stop racism because of humanity. They stopped it because black and brown people fight for it. Fight against it, you mean?
Right? To not use this position in this way, for me, is to really be white. And I'd like to be a little less white. Right? And a little less white, by the way, does not mean a little more Italian-American. Okay? It means a little less oppressive, quite frankly, a little less oblivious and arrogant and ignorant and certain.
Well, Amelia, like, you got to understand, European colonization was based on white supremacy. Like, it was codified into Europe's doctrine. white supremacy and the Christian patriarchy, very much embedded as part of European colonization. So, yeah, I would even go as far as to say formalized into the very fabric of European colonization itself. And that's how racial groups and categories evolved, because whiteness put itself at the top.
And a little more humble and curious and vulnerable, right? The last thing that I want to acknowledge is that nothing in society gives any of us good information about how this works. And so hopefully, again, as an insider, I can offer something to people of color. I do think people of color know about white fragility way more than I ever will.
Fuck yes. Trust me. Fuck yes.
But again, I do have an insider's perspective. So let me say a little bit about some of the challenges of trying to educate white people on racism.
White on white education, folks. It's going to be the next revolution. White on white education. White people educate other white people about whiteness, white fragility, white supremacy, and white privilege. Please, white people need to start doing this in your spaces.
And a great example is I was recently going to give a similar talk to a large tech company, and before they would sign the contract, the legal department wanted to see my slides. And when they got to this slide, they actually asked me if I could take the word white off the slide. To which I replied, "You really should have vetted me before you called." No, I won't. All right. First of all, I've never met a white person who doesn't have an opinion on racism. Have you? If you are not sure all white people have an opinion on racism, just bring it up the next time you're around a bunch of white people. Maybe tonight when you have a drink in Noe Valley. Okay. I don't think you can grow up in this society or spend any significant time here or any other Western-oriented white settler colonial context and not develop an opinion on racism. That doesn't make it informed. So I'm going to say perhaps my first controversial thing. If you are white, I'm sure you have an opinion on the topic, and I don't know virtually anyone in this room. And yet I am confident to say the following. If you are white and you have not devoted years of sustained study, struggle, and focus on this topic, your opinions are necessarily limited, superficial, and uninformed. Wow, how can I say that when I don't even know you? I mean, maybe you've been to Costa Rica.
Or maybe you have brown friends. You know, the guy, the Indian guy in the Indian restaurant who makes you your fucking stale as bland as butter chicken.
Maybe you have multiracial nieces and nephews. Maybe you were in Teach for America. I can say it because nothing in dominant culture gives us the information we would need to have an informed opinion on arguably the most complex, nuanced social dilemma for the last several hundred years. For example, you can get through graduate school in this country without ever discussing racism, can you not? You can get through teacher education in this country without ever discussing racism. And if you're in a progressive teacher education program, you'll have one required course, multicultural of some sort. But that doesn't mean...
Honestly, Big Philly, that question is wrong. How do you deal with people who don't listen? Well, it's really up to you if you want to make them listen. Because if you don't, who's going to?
You'll be discussing racism. You might just be talking about how to introduce ethnic authors in February. Okay? You can get through law school. You can be seen as qualified to lead anything, virtually. Right? So the first challenge for those of us who are white is humility. I want you to know that I'm not standing in front of the choir right now. Even if you volunteered to come, there is no white choir. I am not the choir. And the moment I think I'm the choir, I'm going to be complacent and arrogant and probably defensive about any suggestion that I might not be as much of the choir as I think that I am. Right? Second challenge is that if I do a good job, this won't be comfortable, particularly for the white people in the room, for the whole time. The status quo is racism, and as a white person, that's comfortable for me virtually 24/7. So I'm not here to uphold that. I want to unsettle that, because we will not get where we need to go from a place of white comfort. The key is what we do with those moments of discomfort if I manage to stimulate them. We can certainly use them as a way out. We can also ideally use them as a relatively rare way in. Why does this unsettle me? What would it mean if it were true? And there are two places where white people begin to get uncomfortable when I give a talk, whether you can consciously articulate it to yourself or not.
Hey, Red Bob Scoff, welcome.
The first place is how often I'm going to say the word white. So prepare yourself. About 100
Hey,
times.
no fixed address.
And we're not used to being seen
Welcome,
racially.
Logie.
Right? We're not used to having people perceive as
Lava.
if our race has meaning. And the second place where we can begin to get uncomfortable is that I am going to challenge the very precious ideology of individualism. And I'm going to do it by generalizing about white people all night long. And you're going to be just fine. Okay? It is a very precious ideology. In general, I'm talking about the white collective, we don't like to be generalized about. And so, just so you know, if I thought it was racist to generalize about white people, I wouldn't do it, so you don't have to send that email. You can actually ask yourself, well, might I be missing something if I don't understand it? Right? Rather than she must be doing that wrong. Okay? Yes, we are individuals. Of course. And I couldn't possibly hold every person's story in this room, even if I wanted to.
I want everyone here to understand this is going to be uncomfortable for a lot of people who listen to me as well, who are in this community. I don't expect this to be easy for anybody, especially white people who are listening. I don't expect it to be. Just like when I point out white fragility, white supremacy, and white privilege in leftist spaces. When I say things like, I don't need a guy like Karl Marx to fucking tell me about oppression of people of color, because Karl Marx was a white European dude living with privilege in Europe, I mean it. I don't need some white dude from Europe telling me how my oppression is supposed to be solved. It's gonna make people uncomfortable, folks. It's gonna make people uncomfortable. These conversations are not had enough in leftist spaces. So I understand it's gonna be uncomfortable, but I hope you stay and you listen. Do I hate white people? No, bro. I hate white privilege. I hate white supremacy. I hate white fragility in particular. Look, we've got fragile people already. Look at these people. Look at these people. Look, we have the fragile fucking shit here. What the fuck is going on?
Also members of a social group. By virtue of our membership in this social group, we could literally predict whether you and your mother were going to survive your...
We're literally like 15 minutes into the convo, Lava. 15 fucking minutes. Hey, Amira, welcome. I'm literally listening to a white woman talking about white fragility. This is a white woman. Why would I hate white people? I hate white supremacy. I hate white privilege. These are systems embedded into our everyday lives.
Birth. Regardless of your age, we can predict how long you're going to live because you're a member of this social group. There's a collective experience to being white. There are shared messages. We are all swimming in the same water, right? And just like gender, the way you respond to gender socialization, your challenges to gender socialization, you may have them, there's variations, but nobody can avoid dealing with gender socialization and responding to it. It is the same with racial socialization, right? So every moment that you want to exempt yourself, try this. All right.
I'll give you her name one sec.
She's saying most white people X. I was a Y. Okay, good for you. Okay, you were a Y. Most are X.
Her name is Robin DiAngelo. She wrote a book called White Fragility. This is a lecture that she gave about that book.
How did Y set you up into the racial hierarchy you live in, swim in, grew up in, breathe in, right? It set you up differently than X set me up,
She
but
knows
we
a fair
both
bit,
got
Nick.
set up. It's on you to use everything you see as unique about yourself and figure out how it set you up rather than exempted
Welcome,
you.
evangelist.
And finally, we don't tend to understand the systemic nature of racism. So let's just start there, and I'm going to do this the way that I always do this to explain the difference between personal prejudice that everybody has and systemic racism. So prejudice, prejudgment, everyone has it. There is no human objectivity. We get it from everywhere across our lifespans. Most of it is not conscious. I would highly suggest, and I think it's being sold out there, Dr. Jennifer Eberhard's new book, Biased, where she pulls together all the research, and the research is clear. All of us have prejudice. I'll use the term bias, and most of it is implicit or unconscious. Okay? And therefore, all of us act on it. The way you see the world drives the way you respond to the world. Right? So everybody has it, everybody does it. But when you back one group's collective racial bias with legal authority and institutional control, it is transformed.
That's right.
Into a far-reaching system that becomes the default. It becomes automatic. It's not dependent on your friendliness or your good intentions, right?
And remember, guys, we've spoken about this, and it's not just her who said this. It's Albert Memmi, for example. It's Albert Memmi, for example, who in his book Racism wrote about what systemic racism, what racism is. Right? It's more than just identifying a difference. It's about turning that difference into policy that's oppressive because of that difference.
So it gets embedded in all the institutions.
Of course, Nidar, of course.
And also in cultural definitions of what's even normal, right? What is professionalism? What is intelligence? Whose stories are told? By whom? Whose stories are not told, right?
It's state level, it's institutional level, it's everywhere, right? In schools, for example, the way colonization, like Christopher Columbus is like a hero in schools. Winston Churchill is spoken about like a hero. Like if they were truly honest, like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, these people are painted as heroes. Right? George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were slave owners. George Washington wore slave teeth as dentures. These are hardly people to look up to.
And I'm going to use an example from one form of oppression to launch us into the form we're here to talk about tonight. So we're here to talk about racism. I'm very clear you can't really separate these out. But for our purposes, we're going to take a focused look on racism. But I'm going to draw from an example from the form called sexism. And relax, I'm going to use dominant language. Because I'm going to use this the way our textbooks teach us.
I am a little earlier.
Right? So hang in there.
I wanted to talk about this topic today.
Women
hey, Michael.
got the right to vote in this country in 1920. There was only one possible way that women could get the right to vote, and that was for men to give it to us. Women couldn't vote on the right to vote. They couldn't even speak in many public forums.
Wow, this is insane. I'm going to read this out to you guys. So she's talking about the patriarchy here, right? And the patriarchy has obviously been hugely damaging. Fortune 500 CEOs, 98% male. Presidency, 100% male. Vice presidency, until Kamala Harris, 100% male. Senate, 75% male. This was 7 years ago, by the way, so these stats would have changed. This lecture by her was 7 years ago. House of Representatives, 70% male. Current what do you call it? POTUS cabinet, 84% male. Hey, Lisa, welcome. U.S. mayor, U.S. mayors, 80% male. U.S. governors, 84% male. Federal judges, 87% male. Police officers, 85% male.
Advocate for their right to vote? Could a woman be prejudiced against a man and mean to him in a one-on-one interaction? Of course. Could women as a group literally deny every single man in the society his civil rights? No. Could men deny every woman in the society
How are you,
her
Lisa?
civil rights?
It's good to see you.
Yes. And that is a significant difference that must be acknowledged in language, right?
Nidar has shared a book here. It's called Afro Decolonial Manifesto. Oh, I love it. Okay, these are the types of book recommendations I feel like everyone needs to. Thank you so much, Nidar. I need to get this book. I need to start reading that book. I read Fanon, and I loved every second of it. I'm gonna get this book.
Right. So think about today. In 2019, I'm going to offer you a question. Today, if men as a group wanted to take away our right to vote, could they? Now, that's a little easier to see today than it was about 10 years ago when I first started asking this question. But I have been asking this question for many years because this is the best example of the difference between individual prejudice and institutional power, when yours is backed. And
Norman Ajari, is Norman Ajari Algerian? I don't know. Can you share book in YouTube? Oh, Fanon? Is Fanon Algerian?
most people, when I offer that question, there's confusion, they're not so clear. Some people are sure that they could, some are not, which is also part of how oppression works. So let me just show you some basic statistics from 2019. The Fortune 500 CEOs are 98% male. The 10 richest Americans are all men. 7 of them are the richest people in the world.
Indian.
I think economic power is probably the ultimate form. The presidency and the vice presidency has always been 100% male. The Senate, keep in mind we're celebrating the most diverse Senate Congress we've ever had. 75% male.
He was born in Fort-de-France in Martinique.
House of Representatives, 70% male. The current cabinet, 84% male. U.S. mayors.
This particular book, no, I haven't read the whole thing, but I know about this book. And this is the author of the book. She is the author.
80% male. U.S. governors, 84% male. Federal judges, 87% male. Police officers, 85% male. So I'll just ask you again, if they wanted to. I'm not saying they would. My point is, by definition, institutional power is deeply embedded in the fabric of society. It's embedded across history. These are not flexible systems. Heads up, we live in patriarchy. We live in an androcentric, male-dominated, patriarchal society. We always have, and it didn't end in 1920. And I'm very confident that if Hillary Clinton had become president, patriarchy wasn't going to end that day. Anymore, I mean, if the word patriarchy came out of her mouth, any more than we can see that racism did not.
Colonization built patriarchy into racial hierarchy. European colonization built Christian patriarchy into racial hierarchy.
End upon Obama's presidency. I would argue it got an infusion. All systems of oppression can allow for exceptions. The rule will be consistent. Right? 2019. And just in case you need a visual on my claim that we live in patriarchy, this is the House Freedom Caucus. This is arguably the most powerful committee in the nation. Talk about making decisions at the table that will affect the lives of people who are not at that table. They're literally discussing the health care bill when this picture was taken. Right? In case you need an image from popular culture, this is cover of Vanity Fair. This is a slide I made. I don't even know who it is. I just Googled white guy. And I got this, and I thought, oh, that's a good one. If you have young people in your life, and if you have kind of self-awareness yourself, you know that children are deeply shaped by films, by media, by imagery and marketing, right? The way that they think about the world and understand the world. And all of us pretty much have been deeply shaped by film. Those who write and direct film
Totally
are our
lava, yeah.
cultural narrators. And they shape how we see ourselves and how we see ourselves in relation to other people. And of the 100 top grossing films of all time across the world disseminated from the US, 99 were directed by men. And 95 of them white. Institutional power is the ability to disseminate your worldview to everyone.
Okay, so I I'm on standby for marching orders. Welcome, Ben Zukov. Let me also say, one of the things that pisses the leftist community off about what I say is the fact that we need to dismantle white supremacy and white privilege before we can fight the class war or the patriarchy. Because and the way I justify it, especially in the patriarchy side of things, is think about a white woman in I don't know, in America somewhere, and think about a Aboriginal woman. Who do you think has the tools and the means to fight patriarchy more than the other? Patriarchy doesn't lose its power across borders. But the people fighting it, the means to fight it are different.
Everyone, and to shape how they see themselves, how they see you, how they see themselves in relationship to you. To tell the story of the other when you are not in relationship with the other, when you don't know the other. To be able to represent the other and to do it and position yourself as simply telling universal human stories, not from any particular position. So that Mike Lee is a film director who makes films about the human condition, and Spike Lee is a black film director who makes films about black issues.
Would you say that the example you just shared shows the usefulness of intersectionality as a concept? Absolutely. There is intersectionality, but there's also means, right? And the other way I look at it is the structure of white supremacy itself, and police around the world. Police are in place to protect capital. And capitalism, I've spoken about where capitalism was born. The capitalism we have today is basically European colonization relabeled, right? Remarketed, rebranded. But the thing is, if you look at police around the world, they all are militarized. They have very similar equipment. But if a Bangladeshi man wanted to fight against police, or to rally, or to get on the streets, like they did in 2024, the means that a Bangladeshi man has compared to the means that a person in America has to fight against their police are very different. Both police in both countries are militarized. They have very similar equipment. But one population has more means to fight their police than the others. So these inequities are very important to understand. And those inequities are created by white supremacy and white privilege. First, but there are layers to it, right? In each country, they have their own intersectionality, own issues, but ultimately capitalism is what runs the world.
So Facebook puts these things out on holidays. This one came out to commemorate the anniversary of women gaining suffrage. And then some folks did this.
Fight the police through the legal system. Oh my gosh. Like if you I don't know if you know about the legal systems in places like Bangladesh and India and things like that. They are super hard for people to access, to hold power to account, because people don't have the resources to keep going on a case. Like people can't sustain like a case long enough. Hey Morty, welcome.
Which women got access to the vote in 1920? Yeah, white women. So another dimension of institutional power is that your group's experience is held up as universal. So while we were oppressed as women, we were certainly privileged as white. There is no more universal woman's experience than there is a universal human experience on the physical plane where we live in the here and now.
And this is very important because this is where I talk about white feminism. White feminism. Like, I'll give you an example of my experience with white feminism. I was doing the Epstein files, right? And the name I'd given to Ghislaine Maxwell in the Epstein files was Ghislaine. Okay? So we had Ghislaine going, and I got a message on TikTok. I've shown this community those messages. But this lady came in and called me a misogynist because I called Ghislaine Ghislaine. So I decided I'd check out what videos this lady's been posting. Not one fucking video about the Palestinians in Gaza, the women in Gaza, the Palestinian women in Gaza who've been using tent scraps as period products. Not one fucking video about the fact that Palestinian mothers were being shot with babies in their stomachs. Not one video of Palestinian women giving birth on the streets, basically, because they don't even have Israeli forces stopping vehicles, etc. Nothing. No solidarity with Palestinian women at all. And the thing this fucking lady got pissed off about and called me a misogynist for was me calling a pedophile enabler Ghislaine.
And that recognition, I'm sure many of you know, was termed by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw intersectionality, right? All right, so legal authority and institutional control is what transforms people's prejudice into a far-reaching system. So let's look at race in 2019, right? So the presidency and vice presidency, 100% white. The U.S. Senate, 91% white. I just have to point out again, the most diverse Congress we've ever had.
This is in 2019, by the way.
The House of Representatives, 73% white. The current cabinet, 89% white. The governors, 98% white. Mayors, 88% white. Military advisors, just think about who we go to war with. 100% white. Federal judges, 88% white. Police officers, 80% white. The people who decide which TV shows we see, 93% white. The people who decide which books we read, 90% white. People who decide which news is covered, 85% white. People who decide which music is produced, 95% white. School teachers, 82% white. Full-time college professors, 84% white. Owners of men's pro football teams, 97% white. Owners of men's pro basketball teams, 98% white. The players, 75% black. Right? And yet, what is the definition of a racist, of what it means to be racist in the mainstream? Right? Well, it's an individual, always an individual, not a system, who consciously does not like people based on race. Apparently, if it's not conscious, it doesn't count. And is intentionally mean to them. It also has to be intentional to count. individual conscious malintent across race. That is a racist.
Ham indeed.
And I don't know that you could come up with a better definition to protect the system of racism than this one. Because this definition makes it virtually impossible to talk to the average white person about the inevitable absorption of a racist worldview that we get from living in a culture in which it is infused and embedded across all its institutions, right? I think that this definition is the root of virtually all white defensiveness on this topic. Have you guys noticed any white defensiveness on this topic? Because if that's my definition of a racist, and you've just suggested I've said or done something racist, much less that I benefit from racist just by being white, what I'm going to hear is you just question my very moral character. And now I need to defend my moral character, right? And I will, right?
Sorry, let me just read this comment. Read and rap. It's worth noting that even far left spaces can reproduce white feminism, because being anti-capitalist doesn't automatically make someone anti-racist, anti-sexist. You can have a socialist movement where white women's issues get centered while black, indigenous, working class, immigrant, disabled, or queer women are expected to just wait their turn. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I talk about white leftism a fair bit. And it's constant, erasure or whitewashing of white supremacy and white privilege as an embedded ideology in our society today. White leftists feel that if they are in a leftist space, then that means it makes them equal. And they don't take into account their own privilege. Walaikum assalam, Jujus. I feel like sometimes white leftism feels like colonization of marginalized spaces. And I constantly call that out, but a lot of people get very angry when I fucking say it, because people think reciting the Communist Manifesto makes them like fucking Ho Chi Minh.
So racism is a system, not an event. It certainly occurs in specific moments that we can identify, but of course it's 365, 24/7. It's the system we're in. And part of being raised as a white person in this society has been to be raised to be what I think of as functionally illiterate on this topic. I had opinions, I spouted them freely, I cringe today when I think about
it. Noisy, I'm not sure about this, but is my white privilege under attack again? Do I need to hide my Waterford Crystal Christmas baubles? See, this is the other thing as well, Dane. I know you're being sarcastic. This is the other thing. White privilege isn't just a socioeconomic condition. It is across all areas. Prison systems, the legal systems, the policing, education, government, these capitalism. These are all areas where white privilege can exist. Healthcare. And it doesn't mean you have to be rich or poor.
About that. And part of gaining literacy, and of course that is a lifelong process I will not be finished with. Part of gaining literacy has been to understand the kind of collective dimensions of racism, but also how different groups of color get set up differently. So what's in my head about indigenous peoples is different than what's in my head about Asian heritage people, and that's different than what's in there about African heritage people. I have different levels of comfort and anxiety and interest, etc. And therefore, those groups have different experiences. Okay? And it's very important that we break that down and that we learn those histories and those struggles and those stereotypes and those experiences. So I want to be really clear. All peoples who who are not perceived or defined as white experience racism. And they experience it in shared ways, and they experience it in ways that are different depending on their group and its position to whiteness.
You know what the craziest bit of the craziest thing about this lady saying this stuff, this white lady saying this stuff, it created a tsunami of white fragility. It created a tsunami of white fragility.
Having said that, after 20 years of doing this work, I feel very clear about the following. There is something profoundly anti-black in this culture. And in the white mind, black people are the ultimate racial other. We have the most energy about black people. We have the most resentment and anxiety about black people. And when I have a very short period of time with white people, and I want you to get in touch with your early messages, I ask you to think about black people.
See, like Sean Clark in the TikTok chat, I will also say this. There is no violence like white fragility. Sean Clark has just been having a fragile rant. And I just can't understand why this person is still here. Just swipe away, bro. Like, what? You're just going to get a heart attack by yelling at all of us. Just swipe away, buddy. You need your own racist Asmongold type counterpart called the noisy expat. Cypher.
Right? And anti-blackness, there are poles. Right? White is here and black is here. And I don't have time to get into it, but there is no white without black. There's a deep need for white, the white collective. There is no superiority without inferiority.
The individualism of capitalism is very effective at conditioning white people to believe that somehow they can still maintain their levels of privilege and comfort while doing some guilt alleviating good work on the side. As a white person, I have to be willing to sacrifice my whiteness and refusing to let our indigenous brothers and sisters take retaliation and recrimination on their own. Speak up and not be complicit with inequity by remaining silent. Yeah, one of the core things, guys, one of the core things about using your privilege for good is that always remember, when you vote for policies that are inclusive, you are voting against your white privilege. I'm talking to white people here. When you vote for things like equity for indigenous people, you are voting against your privilege. You are voting against your white privilege. That's why it feels uncomfortable. Even the Black Panthers took marks with some caveat. They understood the class war wasn't enough. Yeah.
Right? So there are poles. And anti-blackness cuts across all groups, including black people. The darker you are, the more compounded the oppression. And while I'm here to challenge white people and our complacency, there's a very sensitive couple questions I think peoples of color have to ask themselves. One, what does anti-blackness look like in our group, and who have I aligned with?
Hey, Big Jerry.
So, having mentioned history, anti-blackness, it's
Thank you
a
for the
system.
follow, Enigma Hole. Welcome.
I want to just give you one glance at the trajectory of anti-blackness since the beginning of this country to the current time.
Nadia, thank you for liking
to
this
illustrate those points. And this slide will be deliberately dense, and we can think about it as state-sanctioned organized crime, quite frankly.
The lady's name is Dr. Robin DiAngelo. She is the author of White Fragility.
Against African Americans. And it begins with kidnapping and 300 plus years of enslavement, torture, rape, and brutality, and it carries on. About 1/4 of the way in here, bans on testifying against whites, and you are in my lifetime. 1/4 of the way in that slide, you are in my lifetime where it was technically legal to murder black people in this country. I would love to never again hear another white person say I didn't own slaves, as if that ended on that day. And
Yeah.
about halfway in at employment discrimination, you are now in 2019 with copious empirical evidence. And if you don't know some of these things, that's on you to educate yourself. But I'm going to pick it up in 2019, and let me repeat, copious empirical evidence. Employment discrimination, educational discrimination, bias laws and policing, white flight, subprime mortgages, mass incarceration, school-to-prison pipeline, disproportionate special education referrals and punishments, testing, tracking, school funding, biased media, voter suppression, cultural mockery, historical omissions, unaddressed trauma, to name a few. It's a system. It's the system we're in, and none of us could be and none of us were exempt from its forces. And this system is not interrupted by friendliness. The system is not interrupted because I smile at
thank
black
you,
people when
Enigma
I
Hole.
pass
Thank
them
you.
by or go to lunch on
Welcome, welcome. It's glad to have you here.
occasion. And African Americans are not and have never been in the position to do this.
Evangelist, one thing I will say is never ever say blacks. Especially as a white person, you should never ever say blacks. Blacks is a very white supremacist way to refer to a community of black people. It is flippant. It is highly bigoted. It was legal to own slaves in the U.S. 161 years ago.
This to the entire white collective, and the white collective has always been and continues to be in the position to do this to African Americans. There is no such thing as reverse racism.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Hallelujah. Halle-freaking-lulia, bro.
Well done, my boy.
देखो मैंने कितना अच्छा डांस करता है
Play that again. Yeah.
Discrimination, you are now in 2019 with copious empirical evidence. And if you don't know some of these things, that's on you to educate yourself. But I'm going to pick it up in 2019, and let me repeat, copious empirical evidence. Employment discrimination, educational discrimination, bias laws and policing, white flight, subprime mortgages, mass incarceration, school-to-prison pipeline, disproportionate special education referrals and punishments, testing, tracking, school funding, biased media, voter suppression, cultural mockery, historical omissions, unaddressed trauma, to name a few. It's a system. It's the system we're in, and none of us could be and none of us were exempt from its forces. And this system is not interrupted by friendliness. The system is not interrupted because I smile at black people when I pass them by or go to lunch on occasion. And African Americans are not and have never been in the position to do this to the entire white collective, and the white collective has always been and continues to be in the position to do this to African Americans.
Now, this lecture was in 2019, and I know there's been developments of how to refer to black people in America. I referred to black people as African Americans like 2 years ago, and I got told off on a live of mine, and I've never done that again. It's black people. I think black Americans. Whatever you need to. I think African American just makes it feel like they don't belong to America, you know?
There is no such thing as reverse racism. Okay? It's a system. All right, now, I know I'm going to need to update this picture pretty soon here, but I can't let go of it yet because when I saw it, I mean, you can just take a wild guess how I feel about Paul Ryan, but that's not why I picked it. When I saw this picture, I just said, this is what it means to be white. These are his incoming interns. These are our future politicians. These are the people who will sit at the tables making decisions about the lives of those who are not at the table. and who they have not been taught are valuable to know or consider or understand. I want you to imagine the neighborhoods they likely grew up in, right?
In Europe, Nidar says, in Europe, we have a word for that in the hospital, Mediterranean syndrome, a racist stereotype in French healthcare whereby staff assume North African and black patients exaggerate their pain. Holy shit.
The schools they likely went to, the teachers they likely had, the friendship circles, their wedding albums. And now imagine that these are our future medical researchers. These are our future school teachers. These are our future social workers, right? Our future lawyers, etc. Right? And this is the position from which white people claim we're objective on race. Just get that image back in your mind of that history slide, and then just look at this. This is last year's college champion Jeopardy playoffs. So those are our best and our brightest, soon to be certified as highly educated from our institutions of higher learning. And that's the board at the end of the grand champion round. So as we can see, there was one category not one of them touched. Clearly the most difficult. Nobody was going to risk losing the grand championship.
African American history is none of them touched the category African American history. So the three white people, and the only category left was African American history.
It's just one picture. I think it speaks volumes, and I don't feel that I can do justice to what it means that we don't know our history, that we could ever separate it out and see it as their history, not the history of this country. Because when we don't know our history and we cannot trace it into the present, we are left with deeply problematic explanations for current conditions.
I think every leftist space should, by definition, be aware of all of this. Because leftism is about this. It's about inclusivity. It's about understanding marginalized spaces. It's about understanding the experience of marginalized communities. Every leftist space needs to understand the role of white supremacy, white privilege in society, especially in the West. But not just in the West, everywhere. Global South too. White supremacy is our operating system. Isn't the left divided into liberalism and far left? No, bro. Liberals are not leftists.
Victim blaming explanations. So I want to walk you through some questions. I'm going to ask you, you can close your eyes, you can look down at the ground. I just want to, in your mind, I want you to notice what images and what narratives come up for you, right? And I would like you to answer these questions from your childhood self, your younger self, not your sophisticated adult self, maybe 10, 11, 12.
There are leftist spaces like that, Noisy. A lot of those aren't online. Who is this lady? Her name is Dr. Robert D'Angelo. We've got a copy and paste in chat. I think Ebony has a copy and paste. Thank you, Ebony, if you could. Thank you so much, Ebony. I appreciate that. Can we backtrack when speaking of people of African descent in the Americas, North or South? The politics differ. Okay.
What do you see? Kind of how would you explain it?
Different topic, but would you say multiculturalism has failed in the West? there would be no West without multiculturalism. It's not that multiculturalism has failed. The West wouldn't even exist, bro. Black and brown bodies built the West. What the fuck are you talking about?
So how racially diverse was your neighborhood growing up? If your neighborhood was not racially diverse, why wasn't it?
Hey, another David, welcome.
Where did people of different races than you live? If they didn't live in your neighborhood, where did they live? And what was it like where people of different races than yourself lived? And how did you know? What images come to your mind when you think about the spaces where they were? And why didn't you live in the same neighborhood? Why don't we live in the same neighborhood?
I remember going to so when I started in high school in Aotearoa, I remember like my first white friend. And we went over to his house. We'd planned a sleepover gaming night. I was young. We were young, and his dad came to pick me up with him. And on the way to their house, the first thing the dad said was, hey, so we want to make you feel at home. We cook some curry for you. we cook some Indian curry for you. Okay, cute. But it's like, really? Fuck, bro. I was like, I didn't quite understand. I was like, oh, thank you, right? Like, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for many years now, and it's like, wow.
Were you encouraged to visit the neighborhoods where people that were of a different race than you lived and get to know the people there, build relationships with them? Or were you discouraged from doing that? And if so, how? How was that conveyed to you? What were the characteristics of a good school? What makes a school good?
Great question.
What are the characteristics of a bad school? What makes a school bad? What's it like at a bad school? What images do you get? Did your parents care about what kind of school you went to? Did they have any energy about that? And if so, why? Were the honors or advanced placement classes and the lower track classes equally racially integrated? And if not, why not? How often have you had a teacher or professor of your own race, or races if you're multiracial?
So true, man.
How often have you been to a wedding that was either all or virtually all white?
The one true real God. It's all good, man. If you want to stick around, it's all good. Don't worry. I get your bit. But if you want to stick around and learn, all good. My youngest daughter has chosen her friends on her own. None of them are white because she sees the value of them as friends, not a political definition. Yeah, kids are like that. You know, kids don't see color in the way we do because we've grown up with discrimination. Like people are like, you know, why do I use the term house curry or whatever? Isn't that bad? Like, bro, I got called a curry muncher all through my fucking schooling. I have heard, you know, curries being used. There is still a cricket club in West Auckland that I know, even to today, in West fucking Auckland, today, that calls the brown cricket players mushkis. Today. So, like, race is not something that I want to give a fuck about, but it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. At every point in my life, whether it is online or in real life, you're constantly made and reminded that you are the person that society thinks you are. Constantly. Whether it's an article, whether it's anything, it's constant. Kids aren't exposed to that yet, but you know, they'll start to build that system too. They'll understand. Schools are trying very hard not to do it, but it's there. It's just slowly but surely embedded.
If we opened your wedding album, if you're married, what would we notice? How often have you been to a funeral that was virtually all white or all white? And what are some of the ways in which your race has shaped your life? So I ask these questions to get to the earlier messaging. I have a pretty good idea of the patterns of that rose up as you thought about them. And yet when you put all this together, right, our socialization into deep racist bias, our
Hey, Miriam,
definition
thank you
of a
so much.
racist as a mean, bad person, you get some rather superficial white narratives. So I want to be really clear about something. As a result of being raised in this society, I have a racist worldview. I have racist biases. I have racist patterns that have developed as a result of that. And I also have investments in the system of racism. It's quite comfortable, and it has helped me overcome the barriers that I have faced. For example, in my early childhood, I did go to diverse schools because I grew up in poverty. But as I moved upwardly mobile, it got whiter and whiter. And nobody ever encouraged me to maintain those relationships across race, right?
Why not be proud of it? I love the food. That's not the point. It's derogatory when it's used that way. It's derogatory when you use that way. It's like the N-word for black people. It's a category of people. It's derogatory. You don't call a person a curry. You know, that's dehumanizing.
So being white has definitely helped me navigate the barriers I faced. And I also have an investment in not seeing anything I just named, which is why I'm the least likely to be able to determine how well I'm doing. I did not choose to be socialized into a racist worldview, racist patterns, and racist investments. I didn't have the choice. And it's actually incredibly liberating to start from the premise that, of course, I was socialized into it. And so I can stop defending, deflecting, denying.
Neighborhood racial
I don't
diversity,
struggle with guilt about that, right? I feel responsible for that socialization, right? So starting from that premise actually is liberating because I can just get to work trying to identify what it's looking like in my life, in my relationships, and in my work. Right? but not starting from that.
When I was about 8, I was playing with a friend of mine who is indigenous, and I took him around to my grandma's place. She lived a couple of streets away. She barely opened the door and whispered,
Premise leads us to say some rather superficial.
And whispered, "What is he doing here?" My mate was clearly uncomfortable, and I couldn't apologize enough. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. Yeah. The only thing I cook different too is halal and allergy, because I want them to eat, not look at food. Yeah. I have a more complex take on anti-white racism than most people in leftist spaces. Not as something common. You're not going to face systemic racism or anything for being white in most of the world, but it is something that can happen. I experienced it as a child in Japan in the 90s. It wasn't bad when I was at my youngest, but it's something that became more intense as parents start telling other kids to stay away from the white girl and such. Didn't know any other white kids either. Hey, Palfax. Yeah, so societies can be prejudiced towards others, but again, the racism part is systemic. Even in Japan, white privilege exists. Even in India, white privilege exists. Right? That's the thing that I guess I would just say, Hellstorm, is people were potentially prejudiced against you, but the white privilege that the global system provides you exists even in Japan.
Things. So, Darlene acknowledged that my area of scholarship is in critical discourse analysis, and that is the critical examination of language.
You were born in 1950? Holy shit.
Language. That words and terms are not just neutral descriptors for something, that the language that we have shapes how we view that thing, which is why language is always political and always a site of struggle. And as I listen to the things that white people say when the topic of racism comes up, I literally got this image in my mind of a dock. And it signifies two things. One, how superficial this is, what we say. But also, if you look at the dock from up above, it looks like it's just floating on the water, right? But it's not just floating on the water. It's resting on an entire structure that's submerged underneath that props it up. And everything I do in my work is to try to get us off the top and get under there and look at that structure, because despite what's on the top, our outcomes are not changing.
Yeah, go for it, silly stuff.
And so I kind of think of them in two sets, colorblind and color celebrate. Probably the number one of the colorblind is I was taught to treat everyone the same. Anybody ever heard that one? Some version of I was taught to treat everyone the same? Okay, you ready? Not one single person in this room was taught to treat everyone the same. You weren't. You don't. You couldn't. And you couldn't be taught to do it. You could be told to do it. I could lecture you to do it. You don't do it. You can't do it. You don't even want to do it.
Oh, yeah. In Brazil, there's white privilege. In Latin America, there's white privilege. Yeah. I mean, Europeans came there and mass murdered white people, bought slaves over from Africa. Yeah. Definitely. White privilege is there.
People have different needs.
Follower detected. Cura personalis. Cura personalis. Thank you so much.
So when I hear this from a white person, there is a bubble over my head. It's got a couple things in it. One, oh, this person doesn't understand basic socialization. This person doesn't understand culture. God, this person is not self-aware. And I just need to give a heads up to the people, to the white people in the room, and I'm going to look at Darlene, because Darlene will call me if I miss it here. To the white people in the room, when people of color hear us say that, they're generally not thinking, all right, I'm talking to a woke white person right now.
Yep.
No? All right, I got that? All right. Usually some version of eye rolling is going on, and a wall is going up. Erin Trent Johnson is a black woman I often co-lead with, and she says, when I hear that from a white person, what I'm thinking is this is a dangerous white person. This is a white person who's going to need to deny my reality. It's just not doing what we think it's doing. Right? So that's the colorblind. Now we've got the color celebrate. Oh, I work in a very diverse environment. I bet that one's popular in Oakland. I have people of color in my family. Me, I'm not racist. I live in Oakland.
I appreciate that, Dave.
That
takes
one gets used
self-reflection to
interchangeably
come
with
to
I'm
it.
not racist, I'm from Canada. I'm not racist, I'm from Germany. I'm not racist, I was in the military. Okay? Sociologists actually have a term for this one. It's called the inoculation case.
Yeah,
I've been near people of color, it stripped me of all my racism. I'm always like, wow, you walk by people of color, you didn't lose your shit. Okay, that's
Noisy Mirror, I also think it's interesting that other leftist streamers who aren't minorities can address these issues and not get much pushback or even participation from racist folks, yet I see it happening here. The difference being that you're a brown person. It's a subtle but hard to miss phenomena once you recognize it. I don't know what it's like when white people talk about this subject. I just know what it's like when I talk about it. There's racist, like, already, there's been a whole bunch of racist people. There was a point in time where I was talking about white supremacy, and I used to get like 80,000 people coming onto my YouTube streams, and one was like 100,000 people. It was crazy, man. Oh my gosh, the amount of how bad does that room smell? How you look dirty. This, that. It was just the craziest tsunami of like racist shit. I have never experienced anything like that. A few people here were there when YouTube was popping off like that, but it was bad. It was so fucking bad.
That's amazing. All right. I want you to notice how often white people invoke proximity as their evidence of a lack of racism. And this is important to notice because it helps reveal what we think racism is, right? It helps reveal what's under the dog. What do I think racism is? That proximity would show that I don't have it, okay? So these last three, how many of you in a conversation with a white person have heard some version of those last three?
Hey, Manda.
Okay, and if we're being honest, we've said some version of these, right? So let's do the discourse analysis on these. When a white person invokes one of these narratives, when racism comes up, they're giving you their evidence, right? This is white people's evidence. In my mind, what is this my evidence of? What do I want to make sure you know? I'm not racist, right? This is not even a stretch, is it? This is what white people say to establish their lack of racism, correct? Okay, so if this is my evidence that I'm not racist, then in order to be good evidence, it has to distinguish me from a racist, right? So a racist apparently can't do those things, or else that would not be good evidence. So a racist can't work 3 cubicles down from a person of color. Couldn't have people call their family, and apparently there's living in Oakland frees the white folks from racism, right? No racists in Oakland. All right. So a racist can't tolerate proximity based on this evidence, right? Are you starting to see how thin that is? Because even an avowed racist can tolerate proximity. I owned my racist conditioning earlier. I don't see myself as an avowed racist. An avowed racist is someone who embraces that conditioning. I seek to challenge that conditioning. But even avowed racists can interact and have proximity across race. Here's an example. So the black man is Gary Young. He's a reporter for The Guardian. And he is interviewing white nationalist Richard Spencer, the white man, right? Richard Spencer is what I would call an avowed racist. He organized the march in Charlottesville. Now look at the body language. Completely relaxed, Richard
Sounds like white support group BS. Logie, like, does this make you feel uncomfortable? Noisy, how do you see the relationship with yourself and those close to you and white people being beneficial? I'm not sure what that means.
Spencer's not freaking out. He's having a calm conversation with Gary Young. Richard Spencer might go home and have, nieces and nephews of color in his family, right? Here he is at the march. Right. Children are so much more open, right? Of all the things I say, this is probably about the hardest, what I'm about to say. The research is very clear that by age 3 to 4, all children who grow up here understand it's better to be white. No child misses the message. And it's not a singular, isolated message. It's not dependent on some mean person. That message circulates 24/7. And they know it, and they absorb it. And when we project this racial innocence on them, we leave them unattended to it. They can't resist it. So frozen.
Yeah, my son has told me that he wants white skin. He didn't I've had to speak to him about it. It's conditioned. Even at schools, it's conditioned. Because the things people talk about at schools, the teachers who talk about stuff at schools, is that the stuff he watches on TV. It's just white people everywhere. It's very hard to get content for people of color, kids of color.
For me is a great example for the younger and for the teen years. This is last year's top 5 runners-up for Miss Teen USA. No little girl misses the message. And yes, they are 5 different girls. You have to concentrate really hard. But when you give up, just go over here and look at the sides. You can see the states. Okay? Okay, I mean, just take it in Miss Teen USA. This is the group that they were drawn from, right? But is that not how it always is? There'll be 1, maybe 2 to the back or to the side.
I had my 13-year-old niece ask, "Why are mostly white people rich?" Yeah, I know that my nephew at school got called the N-word. Just out there on New Zealand, you can't get away from this shit.
Right? And because I know my people, I am confident that for all these white girls, that one black girl is their evidence for why they're not racist. Everybody loved her. Nobody had a problem with her. Now you get that young woman alone in a room with someone she trusts and debrief her. I can't imagine what that experience was like for her. But I want to move these white girls way past, were you or weren't you friendly to the black girl?
The amount of slander this lady got, though, is crazy. The amount of slander. They tried to get her on plagiarism because she took a couple of bits of research and didn't put quotation marks in her text. It's crazy, bro. Like the amount of slander she got for this, what she did here is crazy. Mehdi Hassan did an interview with her. I'll show you guys that next. That more talks about white fragility in progressive spaces, which I think will be more relevant to the title of this live. But this context is important.
If you were friendly to the black girl, you're free of all racism. I want to move them to a really different place, which is what's going on here? How does it keep getting reproduced? How have you been shaped by it? And what role will you play going forward to reproduce it yourself if you can't see it or understand it? It's just a very different question. I was in the Peace Corps. I'm going to Teach for America. I'm a minority myself. I marched in the 60s. I was on a mission in Africa. I've been doing this for years. So I'm going to ask another set of rhetorical questions. These are the white progressives.
So there's rich people in every country is insane. When you look at the Forbes list, you can see the percentages of people from which country they come from and the percentage of white people, et cetera, right? So you can see the demographics there. It's silly, as your name says, to say something like that to underplay or downplay the role of white supremacy in capitalism. But it's important for people to know that capitalism as a word itself was invented in the 1800s, 1860, mid 1800s. And capitalism was invented by a French socialist who was observing how Europe worked at that time, how money was being centralized and used and concentrated. Now, what was Europe doing at that time when the word capitalism was invented? What was Europe doing? What was this French person observing? He was observing capital that was created through the subjugation of the global South, the wealth theft of the global South, the exploitation of labor from the global South. So capitalism itself is European colonization rebranded. So when you say rich people, you're talking about a system. It's the entire system comes from what Europe did to the world over 600 years.
Evidence.
Noisy, my daughter is biracial, and when she was 6 in New Zealand, she came back from school saying she wanted to have white skin. It broke me for a bit. Especially how it made my partner feel. If that can't highlight white privilege, I don't know what can. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I've seen the curriculum. My wife has, Amber has said, don't go talking about it. But I've made my feelings very clear to Amber about the kind of things they're reading and the kinds of the kinds of stories they're being told, all of this, right? I wanted to go to their school and have that conversation with them. I still will at some stage, but for my son to come back home and say that, not cool.
To my dear friend Darlene. Darlene, could a racist work 3 cubicles down from you? Even one who doesn't think they're racist? Even one on the equity team? All right, folks on equity teams.
Hey, my love.
All right, I'm all for equity teams, or whatever you call them, D&E, I&E, E&D, anything but racial equity teams. You don't want to scare the white people, so don't put race in there. But I'm all for equity teams. But I also need to say that some of the most gatekeeping, obstructionist white people are on equity teams.
Happy Joy says, we just don't want you near us. Then your ancestors shouldn't have come to us and taken us to you. Now you just have to suck it up, buttercup, and prepare to be replaced.
And in equity work, right? And I have been in many equity teams where most of our energy was spent strategizing how to get around another white person on the equity team. So I just want to be clear that, of course, there are some very constructive people, white people in those teams. The key is it doesn't certify you. Nothing certifies you. It's the complacency and the arrogance, right? Which, of course, sets up defensiveness. Right? I'm going to ask another rhetorical question to the people of color in the room. Do you have white people whom you love dearly and who on occasion reveal a racist worldview to you? Yes. Okay, white people, did you hear that? Yeah. Could you even be married to them? Yes. Okay. White people, did you hear that? Okay. Let me put it this way. I'm married to a man. He's a white man. Trust me, the day he fell in love with me, all his sexism did not vanish. Au contraire. He's a product of patriarchy, as am I.
Can we talk about the replacement comment you just made? Did it make you feel a bit fragile there, silly?
You know, it comes out and we struggle with it. And I would never say we are free of all gender conditioning and all sexist dynamics because we love each other. But notice the moment there's fond regard, all race and racism and racial bias disappears for white people. We're very funny on this one. Okay? Well, this is probably popular in Oakland. We don't like how white our neighborhood is or is getting, but we had to move here for the schools. What could we do?
Yeah.
I think it's disingenuous. I think we do like how white our neighborhoods are. And I don't think our kids could be exceptional and have the best if somebody didn't have less. I think that's a hard conversation we need to have.
Just say you're spoiled? No. If someone's being racist to me, if someone attacks me, the way I am is I'm going to give it back. I am sick of being told by white people how to react. I am sick of being told by people of color who don't have the spine to speak up telling me how to react to racism against me. I am sick of fucking people, especially people of color, who are so cowardly that they would stop me from reacting to racism with the kind of vigor that I react with, just because they don't have the fucking spine to do it. Spineless. I don't know if you're a person of color. I don't know if you're white. If you're white, fuck off. I don't need to listen to you on how to behave. Don't ever fucking tell me how to behave. If you're a person of color telling me to react in that way, you need to look at yourself and go, why do you censor yourself when you are attacked with racism? Why do you react in a coward like manner when you are attacked with racism? Don't take a backward step. These people don't give a fuck about what you say. They're here to be, these people don't give a fuck about how you feel. Yeah, don't fucking lecture me, silly. You're in my space now. I am the captain here.
But these are, of course, all colors celebrate narratives. You know, I see it, I embrace it. There's a question that's never failed me in my efforts to uncover how do we get the outcomes we're getting then if this is what's going on. And that question isn't, is this true or is this false? Were you or weren't you taught to treat everyone the same? We're going to debate that. The question that's never failed me is, how do these narratives function in the conversation? What happens when racism gets on the table and a white person invokes one of these narratives? And when we ask that question, I think we can see that all of them exempt the person from any part of the problem. All of them take racism off the table, nothing to see here. In doing that, all of them close rather than open the exploration.
You know what the silliest thing white people do is the reason why white people are so afraid of being the minority is because white people know what whiteness has done to minorities. They are so fucking afraid of it because they know what white supremacy and white privilege has done to minorities. And they are scared. They are afraid that it will happen to them. There's a great book There's a great book. I think it's Ronald S. Lauder, American journalist, wrote a book called White Fear. And White Fear, read that book. If you are American, no, Papa, no. You got to understand the fear that you have as a white person about being a minority does not mean I can't speak up against white supremacy and the damage it has caused and continues to cause for 600 years. If that makes you feel fragile, you're in the wrong space. I am not going to take a step back when I speak about these subjects. Not for anybody. Do not lecture me.
And in doing that, all of them protect the current racial hierarchy and the white position within it. They're exemptors and closers and protectors. And you don't have to be consciously thinking, I know what I'll do. But that's the impact that they have. Okay? We really need to ask ourselves, what framework of meaning am I coming from that this would seem to me to be good evidence? And how do I actually know how it's landing on the other side? Okay? So we're going to do a little turn and talk. So you have to come back when I call you. But I am going to have you turn to the person next to you. Those of you that are in this...
So the reason why the Great Replacement Theory has become such a big talking point in the white supremacist sphere is because European colonization literally tried to replace indigenous people. They literally tried to replace indigenous populations, kill them off. It's just projection. It's projection. It's projection. It's a projection of its fragility. It is just fragility because they think that that's going to happen to them. Well, European people tried to murder every Maori person in Aotearoa. European people tried to murder every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander in Australia. European people tried to murder all indigenous people across the Americas. European people are currently trying to murder all Palestinian people, Lebanese people, Syrian people, Iranian people. Remember what Trump said, I'll wipe that civilization off the face of the earth. European colonization tried to wipe out Indian people, but we just fucked way too much. We just fucked. We fucked, and we fucked. Roland S. Martinia.
Work know that we often caution white people, don't take up all the space, don't talk first. And because that's our usual pattern, until it's a high-risk question on race. Oh, then I'm going to let the person of color go first, and then I'll just model whatever I say on whatever they just said. Okay. So if you turn and the person, you're interracial, one of you is white, white person go first. Take that risk. Do not give the race work to people of color. All right, so this question you're going to answer if you're white is basically, how do you credential your...
The British starved, by some estimates, 100 million to 165 million Indians between 1880 and 1920. By looking at excess deaths, 100 million to 165 million in 40 years.
Yourself in conversations about race. What moves do you make to signal that you're not racist or you're less racist? Never met a white person who doesn't do this. I do this. I try not to do this. I catch myself doing it. And if I told you that people of color notice when we're doing this, how do you think it's actually impacting the conversation? Okay? And if you are black, indigenous, person of color, the question is, how have you noticed white people credentialing themselves? And does it work? And just before I forget, a group of people had asked if I could go out for a drink after the talk. And I can't do that because it's Monday night. Yeah, Monday night I have my Ta-Nehisi Coates book study group. And I always...
Nice.
I always follow it with a double feature of Black Panther and Get Out. My 5th time, actually.
No, silly. What you don't understand is, I'm not saying that there wasn't slavery before European colonization. I'm not saying that there wasn't mass murder before European colonization or while European colonization was happening by others. What I'm saying is, European colonization is the largest man-made human suffering ever. Nothing comes close. European colonization was and still is the largest man-made human suffering ever. Nothing comes close. Still.
And now I have to add Green Book, so I'm just booked. I'm not going to be able to go out for a drink, but I just gave you 4 more moves. So could be something I've named, could be something, but just how do you do it and what do you think about it now? Okay, so just give you a couple minutes. All right, welcome back. Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you. Obviously, I can't give you the time that I'd love to give you, so keep thinking about this one. And about now, if you're white, you might be thinking, holy shit, I can't do anything and get this right. And that's true, actually. You can't. So that can never be the reason for not staying in the struggle. I think the guidance I would offer is show, don't tell. Right? If it's truly integrated in the way you see the world, it will come through. It will be there. You don't have to be driven by anxiety and urgency.
I want to understand how people of non-European descent suffering can lower reparations.
Because whenever I'm driven by racial anxiety and urgency, odds are it's going to land problematically on the other side, right? And what people of color have shared with me that comes up for them when they notice us doing this are a couple things. One, in those moments, they feel very...
Like your empathy's all nice and all? Reparations.
Racialized. They see us saying things and acting in ways we're not acting when we're with other white people, right? They feel objectified. And often what they're thinking is, so what? Right? Like, yeah, that just doesn't mean anything, right? That you, whatever it was. Right? So this was the last question I offered you in the reflection. And I want to share with you, I've been asking this question of white people for 20 years. My second book, What Does It Mean to Be White, is me seeking to answer this question. And I want to...
It's not just my solution. It's what the Global South nations have been asking for. I have been demanding. It's not my personal solution. And I think it's correct. CARICOM very recently said the same thing. If reparations happen, would white people still get to keep their jobs and organizations? Oh, bro, that is. Oh my gosh, I fucking hate this conversation with white people who are like this. Like, how the fuck do you not understand? Oh my gosh. Imagine when the British went to India and started mass murdering Indians, and an Indian guy said the same thing. Oh yeah, you can take my things, but can I keep my job and my company? What do you think that British guy would have said?
Share with you some common patterns when I ask white people this question.
I'm not saying that's what we need to do, but just think about how deeply fragile that question is.
Usually if we have a workshop, they're in kind of dyads or triads, and they get a minute each. And I think the patterns, again, are very revealing. So the first pattern is that it's a very uncomfortable question for a lot of white people to be asked. And the second pattern is that it's very difficult for us to answer it with any depth or criticality at all. I have seen so many dyads and triads of people where a white person couldn't actually feel 1 minute. 60 seconds, they couldn't feel it. They just let the time go by, right?
I think USA and Spain should give Puerto Rico reparations so I can live my best life with water and energy. And Isa, I will be right here fucking clapping that on. I can't wait. I can't fucking wait, Isa.
And so I want to offer, oh, by the way, if you're a white progressive from Oakland,
So if we pay, can we still do the colonizing thing, Noisy? We have to think about it. Let's draw up an agreement.
You could probably throw the word privilege in there, but it doesn't mean, right, that you can really answer the question with depth, okay? And I want to offer that our inability to answer this question is not benign. It's not actually innocent either. That collectively it creates a hostile environment for people of color, particularly those living and working in primarily white spaces. Because if I can't tell you what it means to be white, I can't hold what it means not to be white, right? I'm going to have no critical thinking on this topic. I'm going to have no skills in navigating the conversation, and I'm going to have no emotional stamina to endure the discomfort of the conversation. And people of color working with us know that this inability we bring to the table. And what that means is they cannot be their authentic selves with us. They cannot bring their experiences to us. They cannot talk to us about what they're experiencing because they know that we can't handle it.
Yeah. Infected Ghost. I was just doing it for effect. Ben Zukov, I'm 30, going through puberty 15 years late. Even Hassan hasn't been this racist. I'm baffled but not surprised this sort of behavior is allowed on any social platform. 106 between. Oh, look, we have a snowflake. We have a snowflake. Ah. Okay, let's look at this. There's also a published paper on this if you want to read. How British colonialism killed 100 million Indians in 40 years. Between 1880 and 1920, British colonial policies in India claimed more lives than all famines in the Soviet Union, Maoist China, and North Korea combined. The reference that it uses is this. I am not a robot, okay? I am not a robot. The reference that it uses is this paper here. And it's called Capitalism and Extreme Poverty, a global analysis of real wages, human height, and mortality since the long 16th century. Go read it, and then we can talk, okay? Don't be a little silly fool, Voltage. This is not an article. This is a published paper, dumbass.
And so they have to spend inordinate amounts of energy trying not to unsettle white people. Right? That it actually...
Yeah. It's like we talk about this subject and you get the snowflakes coming in doing the whole, oh, this is so reverse racism. This is so racist. Oh, you're so racist against white people.
It's better to take it home, to endure that slight and that indignity, than risk enduring more slights and indignities by trying to talk to the person about it. So I'm just going to ask a rhetorical question to people of color in the room. How often have you tried to talk to a white person about our inevitable and often unaware racist patterns and perspectives and assumptions, and had that go well for you? Even white people laugh, right? Even we know it doesn't tend to go well, okay? And so it creates a hostile environment. You know, we really have to change what we understand it means to create a hostile environment. I, as a white progressive, am never going to say the N-word. I'm not going to say a just blatant racial slur. But my inability most of my life to answer that question has contributed to a climate that has been hostile to the people of color in my life that have interacted with me. Okay? I want to say something about white progressives. Do you guys know that white progressives are my specialty? Have I mentioned that?
Yeah, white progressives, where I'm coming to the subject. Because I know there are a few fragile fucking white progressives or white leftists on Twitch in particular. On Twitch in particular, who I've had conversations with about white supremacy and white privilege in the leftist movement. I have had this conversation and people have hated it. Now they'll do all these silly things, call me silly things, but it comes back to white fragility again. Just because you're a leftist or white leftist doesn't mean you don't have the same fragility.
Did I mention that yet? No? All right, well, white progressives are my specialty. So what's a white progressive? I'm not talking Democrat versus Republican. I'm talking about any white person sitting in this room right now thinking, it's not me. It's less me. Any white person sitting here right now going through their exemptions, or sitting here thinking about some other white person who really should have been here tonight. We are white progressives, and we're my specialty because I'm a huge white progressive. I totally get the consciousness. And when I first applied for a job leading in interracial teams, primarily white employees in the workplace, in conversations about race, I thought, well, of course I'm qualified to do that. I'm a vegetarian. I mean, like, how could I be racist? I mean, I would need to be a vegan today, but I mean, that was the 90s. That was very progressive to be a vegetarian. You know, I just had this, you know, it's all about open-mindedness. And I think we can be the most difficult because, one, we're so oblivious, but also we can be so defensive and so complacent, right? And the degree that our identities are attached to being free of racism, we're actually going to be more resistant to any feedback that we're behaving in problematic ways. I mean, this is the challenge of a white progressive. On the one hand, oh my God, I would never want to accidentally say or do anything racist. Don't you dare tell me I just said or did something racist. Right? So it's a very tight hook. When we do answer this question, we tend to organize our answers around people of color. So I'll tell you a story about an early friendship or a moment or an incident or an interaction. And that's really revealing too, because of course that's not answering the question. But it reveals how deeply we associate race with what they have and how unracialized our own identities are. How unable we are to see white space as racial space. People say, I grew up in a sterile white, and I'd be like, oh yeah, no, it wasn't sterile, trust me. Teeming with race. Every moment, because it's also the result of decades and decades of policies and practices. White space is not natural or some kind of fluke. You didn't just happen to, right? But every moment I spend in white space, I'm being deeply reinforced in many, many problematic dynamics and understandings of the world. Okay? All right. So I am just going to go over some of the ways that my life has been shaped by my race. And first of all, the relentless messages that white is the ideal for humanity. That white is the human ideal. And I don't know that I could come up with a better representation of it than this. God creating man. Okay? And of course, as a child, I didn't look up and go, oh, God is white. I never have to. It's just relentless, right? I grew up in poverty. When I say that, I mean that very explicitly. Periods of living in our car, periods of being
There
left
it
with
is.
people I didn't know.
There it is, right there. The absence of that struggle. There it is. Oh my gosh, this one picture literally describes what I've been trying to say. Unless and until we dismantle white privilege and white supremacy, we are not going to be able to fight the class war or the patriarchy. We're just not. Because some people have far more privilege, and some people just have far more resources to fight these things. Leftist spaces have to understand this.
I didn't go to college until I was in my 30s. I had a very deep sense of shame as a child around that poverty. And I always knew I was white. Come on. Sorry. I mean, white folks that grow up poor or working class, you could say that to be poor and working class and white is the same as to be poor and working class and black. I always knew I was white. And being white has absolutely helped me navigate classism. Right? We have to ask ourselves not how some other struggle or oppression, and let me be clear, I'm not saying white people don't struggle or face oppression, but we don't face that one. And not facing that one absolutely helps us navigate the struggles we do face. But I think that the most profound way that my life has been shaped by my race is that I could be born into, I could grow up, I could build friendship circles and celebrate milestones and play. I could learn and be taught. Right? I could be highly educated and certified as highly educated. I could work. I could lead and make decisions that affect other people's lives. I could worship. I could love. How many of you have been to a wedding that if it wasn't all white, it was pretty close to all white? Okay? Your wedding, big or small, is your circle. And it speaks to how separately we live our lives, right? So I could love and I could die in racial segregation. And not one person who's ever loved or mentored me has ever conveyed to me that I've lost anything of value. That is the deepest message of all. Again, I'm never going to say the N-word. But that deeply internalized absence of any loss in living a segregated life has profoundly shaped me, my worldview, what I care about, what I don't care about, what I see, what I don't see.
I want to read you guys a little excerpt from Racism, which is Albert Memmi's book. I just want to read you guys this on Memmi's understanding of what white privilege is. And I think a super important description, and it comes to this. It kind of resonates because it's similar to what she's saying. Hold on, let me get this going. Yeah. Most white people do not consider themselves privileged but the freedom from having to deal with gratuitous hostility or suspicion or subtle exclusion remains the quintessential privilege. For white men, for instance, civil rights and democratic participation are culturally assumed. They become surprised or even enraged when these are called in question. For other groups, civil rights are not a social assumption, but a continual problem, an arena of political struggle against discrimination. This disparity between the political and the cultural, between the problematic and the assumed, between the withheld and what goes without saying, renders dialogue on the issue well nigh impossible. I think that's such a real thing. White men, for instance, civil rights and democratic participations are culturally assumed. They become surprised or even enraged when these are called into question. For other groups, civil rights are not a social assumption, but a continual problem, an arena of political struggle against discrimination. Take gerrymandering in America, for example. Cutting whole black communities out of the voting system. That happens now. Salam, Scary.
What I'm drawn to, what I'm not drawn to, right? My wedding looked a lot like that. Why would my funeral not look like that? White people can easily go cradle to grave in segregation without anyone conveying they've lost anything that mattered, right? Without any relationships across race, and with black people in particular. In fact, we white people measure the value of our lives and our neighborhoods and our schools by the absence of people of color. I want you to think about how we talk about the Jim Crow South as a tragedy that was imposed upon black people. And we live the most segregated lives of any group that we choose that, and we celebrate it by talking about how good it is because it's white. I'm going to repeat. We measure the value of our spaces by the absence of people of color and black people in particular. My psychosocial development was inculcated in this water. I've internalized this message. I didn't miss this message. And it does seep out of my pores. The fundamental message is there's no inherent value in the perspectives or experiences.
Lots of white kids that were racist AF to me invited me to their weddings recently. They didn't even realize they were racist. Fuck no, I ain't going to that shit.
Of people of color.
You should tell them that they were racist. I would go a step further and say, I'm not coming because I don't think you understand how racist you were to me.
And these messages are raining down on every one of us 24/7. There are no umbrellas. No one had an umbrella. No one had an umbrella. Nothing could exempt you from these messages. How we respond to them might vary. We all are getting them. So if we go back under that surface and we say, what is it that is propping all of this up? This is my best thinking about what it is. The good-bad binary, which is just this idea that racists are bad, not racists are good. You're either or, and if you're good, you couldn't possibly be racist. Deep implicit bias, which you can't help but absorb. The precious ideology of individualism, which allows us to exempt ourselves from all of this because, we're different. At the same time, universalism, which allows us to see ourselves as speaking for everyone from no particular position. Right? Internalized superiority. And on some level, an investment, which is why we cannot be trusted on this topic. And then the power of segregation to hold it all in place, even if our immediate lives are not segregated, the society at large. So just want to go over some key maybe terms. So white supremacy. I'm very comfortable saying the term white supremacy. Yes, it includes extremists or neo-Nazis, what we would think about. That's how I grew up with that definition. It is also a highly descriptive sociological term for the society we live in. A society in which white people are elevated as the ideal for humanity and everyone else is a deficient version of that, right? White supremacy, okay? Whiteness are all of the unnamed elements that together reproduce and protect white supremacy. White privilege is one of the outcomes of white supremacy. And what I think I may be offering to this conversation is white fragility is what surfaces when any of the above is acknowledged or questioned.
Yeah, like Stuart Chase in the TikTok chat is a fragile little snowflake.
And that functions to protect it and keep it back in place, right? So what are some common responses to feedback on all of this? Right? Now just tell me if you've ever noticed it, right? Ever noticed these responses from white people when any of this is suggested? Okay, apparently.
Yep.
All right.
Denying, arguing, withdrawing, crying, explaining, claims to be attacked, focusing on intentions, seeking absolution, insistence on misunderstanding. Oh my goodness.
Denying, arguing, withdrawing, crying, explaining, claims that we've been attacked, focusing on our intentions, seeking absolution or forgiveness, insistence on misunderstanding, right? Okay. Emotions are political, right? So we kind of tend to think about it as some natural thing that just emerges. And
Emotions are political. I mean, a white woman's tears can get a black man arrested or shot.
so they all have to be attended to and protected. Emotions are political for a couple of reasons. One, the framework you're perceiving and interpreting through is what drives the particular emotions that you have, and it is a socio-political framework. That is why 20 years ago, if you told me that I was racist, I would have been extremely upset. And today, if you tell me I'm racist, I'm going to be very interested in you helping me see how. Those are very different emotional responses because my framework is different. And emotions are also political because they drive behaviors that are externalized and affect other people. Okay? This is why white women's tears is a problem.
Oh, shit.
Okay? So these emotions function in particular ways. Again, they're not benign and they're not neutral. And this leads to what I call white fragility. The inability to tolerate the racial stress of a challenge to our positions, our perspectives, our assumptions. And it functions to block the challenge and regain our equilibrium or our positions, right? And when I first coined this term, the fragility part is meant to capture how little it takes to cause white people to melt down. You may have noticed, right? For a lot of white people, generalizing about white people will cause us to melt down. Suggesting that being white
I have not
meaning.
pre-watched this, by the way.
If you're a white progressive and you're involved in the work, it would probably take way more. Generally, what I notice is everything's fine no matter what you say until you actually look directly at the person and say, let me tell you how you're being racist right now. Okay, then that blows up, okay? So the fragility part is that it generally does not take much at all to set us off, but the response is not fragile at all. Because it marshals behind it the weight of history, legal authority, and institutional control. So it is a weaponized hurt feelings, weaponized defensiveness, weaponized tears. My sister, who's hearing me for the first time, my beloved sister, was laughing when she saw this picture because this is my husband. I made him pose in the kitchen. He's like, everyone's going to think I'm an asshole. And I'm like, yeah. All going to think you're an asshole. All the room is taken under patriarchy, so you got white fragility. Okay. All right. So I think about white fragility as the sociology of dominance. Right? It's how we maintain our positions. And so, again, it's not weakness per se. I think white fragility functions as a kind of everyday white racial bullying. We make it so miserable for people of color to talk to us about our inevitable and often unaware racist patterns and behaviors that most of the time they don't. They endure lest they risk more punishment because the experience typically is it gets worse, not better. So it's a form of everyday white racial control because you can be with us and around us in the right doses and the right numbers from the right groups, and we will definitely claim you as diversity cover as long as you don't challenge us. And if you challenge us...
Jimny, like literally, while we've been watching this video, there have been about 10, 15 people who've come through the live and called me racist, called me hateful, called me... See, look here. We're annoyed that you are complaining about how we fund your existence. This is obviously bullying. Like, this person here has come in and just been outwardly racist. Like, the fragility is in chat every fucking second. Like, when I play this, they'll see a brown face and they're straight in. It's they'll see a brown face, they'll see a kafir, they'll attack me in one in two ways. One, they'll attack me as an Indian person. Two, they'll attack me as a tell me as a Muslim person. I'm not even fucking Muslim. But this is how, like, every day. It's not, I don't even have to talk about white fragility. I can literally be talking about any subject, I will get attacked. It's me speaking. I wasn't even at the fucking raid yesterday and I got attacked. I wasn't even there.
Well, you might get away with it once, but I wonder if people of color can even get away with it once in the workplace. Okay, I'm getting a no here. Before they're seen as a troublemaker and difficult. And the consequences of that are devastating. Loss of job, criminalization, institutionalization. It is very serious. And I want to say something about my use of humor. In some ways it's okay. It's my style, if you hang out with me. It's also a strategy. And notice that as comedians use the term punching up rather than punching down, I do think that we need to laugh at how ridiculous we are in so many ways. But of course, ridiculous there are devastating consequences to that. And it also helps relieve tension.
So I've been talking about leftist spaces. I've always spoken about leftist spaces not taking into account white privilege and white supremacy, especially white leftists. I often speak about that, and I often get white leftists who lose their shit at me. Okay? They get hurt. They get hurt because I point out that white leftism, no matter how many times they read the Communist Manifesto, they will never understand what it's like to be Ho Chi Minh. But what white leftists expect is that if they read the Communist Manifesto and if they are communist enough, they can somehow be in marginalized spaces and understand. But what they don't realize, white leftists who are like this, who are not aware, is what they're actually doing is colonizing marginalized spaces. They are doing what white privilege and white supremacy has done for so long. And when I point that out, white leftists don't like it. They hate. I am a a race reductionist. I am a race reductionist, or I am a race essentialist. No, it's reality. It's fucking reality. It's the world we live in.
Right, we can start to kind of have cognitive dissonance and shut down, and the laughter kind of helps loosen us up. But I don't ever, ever, ever mean to be glib about the consequences of all of this. Right? Okay. So when you think about those behaviors and those feelings, and you ask yourself, what could be under...
No. I was just the comment before was directed to Lava. You didn't tag Lava. Sorry. But it kind of it kind of makes sense for me to speak though. Speak about this. Hey Linda, welcome. Because it's just the case. Like yesterday when we raided, should I even say who we raided? Should I even say who we raided? I don't know. But we raided somebody, and they were like, they were like. I raid and run, right? I raid and run often. Now, I'm not going to say who it was. Fuck it. I don't care. I raided and ran, and they were like, oh, noisy immigrant is racist against brown people. Like, apparently, I'm racist against white people. I misgender people. I don't know, man. And I hate communists. Right? Like all of this weird shit. It's because of this. I speak about white leftism. I speak about the fact that white leftists often, I feel like white leftism often doesn't take into account white supremacy and white privilege. Often. Those spaces do not take this into account, and they get fucking pissed off.
Under the dock that would cause us to behave that way, right?
No, the person who I rated was doing the mischaracterizations too.
Well, certainly the mainstream definition of what it means to be racist. But this is what I think must be under there to cause these responses. Nice people cannot also act in racist ways, apparently. Racism can only be conscious and intentional, not having intended it.
This chatter, who I think it is, we spoke to this chatter for so fucking long, okay? And I have the thread. I showed it to my mods. I have the thread. I think I know who has gone into those spaces and said these things about me. I think I know. We had to block them because they were being obnoxious. But I kept calling them bro. I kept saying bro. I call most people bro. And I say man, like it's not me. It's just me psychologically. That's how I refer to people. Like, guys, I don't mean like a gender. I just say guys, bro. I call my wife bro. You know, like I'm not guys. When I say guys, I'm putting everybody into that, right? Like it's a bad thing. I know. I should stop doing that. It's just like a thing that I do. And it's probably from the environment that I'm in. But this person's like, "Oh, I'm not a guy, or I'm not a man." And that person, after we blocked them, has gone into these spaces and just said shit, I think. And now, the worst part is those people who have just taken that person at face value and did not ask me. They didn't ask me. Like these streamers, they did not ask me if these things were true. They just went to straight up, just to shit on me and the community when we raided. I am more mad about the fact that I raided this person because I thought they were solid. And when they went in, they shit not just on me, on the whole community.
It cancels it out. As a white person, I will be the judge of whether racism has occurred. My learning is finished. I know all I need to know. I've done lots of travel. White people who experience oppression or have suffered cannot also act in racism.
This is why I wanted to do this today. This is why I wanted to talk about white fragility today. This is why I wanted to talk about white fragility, white privilege, and white supremacy in leftist spaces, like in progressive spaces, because it's real. It's real. It exists. It's everywhere. And white leftists need to realize that they have white privilege. It's baggage, but it's there.
Racist ways or benefit from the system of racism. My race has no bearing on my perspective. Yours definitely has a bearing on yours, but mine has no bearing on the matter. I am qualified to determine whether people of color's experiences are legitimate or not. And if I don't understand it, it's not legitimate. As a white person, I know the best way to challenge racism, and you're doing it wrong. I have no accountability to people of color, yet I'm confident that I'm free of racism. I have proximity to people of color, so I'm confident that I'm free of racism. I have no proximity to people of color, so I'm racially innocent.
Yeah. I'm married to an Indian woman, or I'm married to a brown woman, a black woman. So yeah, I can't be fucking racist if I'm married to a brown woman. Like, what?
I grew up on a small farm. Don't know anything about it. I would just offer, if you grew up on a small farm in a little town and the next town or farm was 10 miles away, you may be actually less sheltered from the forces of racism. Because what and who were you left to rely on for your understanding? Right? Jokes.
Nah, Amanda, I probably do it too much. I probably do it too much. I should be more aware. But the person was an anonymous account with a name, with a name. They spent the whole fucking time, like being completely vague about who they are. We asked them so many times, like, are you a white person? Are you like, they're like, oh, I'm not white. Okay. Like everything had to be dragged out of them while they were making all of these comments. They just didn't want to address it with any sort of authenticity. They just wanted to like drag the conversation on. And honestly, we let this person come back again. I mean, I know Shiny knows. I've shared it with the mods. We let this person come back. We deleted some of their like terrible fucking messages. And it's just like, what the hell? I got sick and I just blocked them.
Missions, warnings.
I don't know, Shiny. I don't know, my clothes brush. Like, if you guys want to add anything to that, please do it. Maybe I'm just not saying enough, but feel free to add on anything to it. I won't take it, in a bad way. If you want to correct me, I've said something wrong, just do it. But that's the way I see it.
White people are objective on racism. Okay. So maybe, let's see, how are we doing on time? Pretty good. I'm going to give you one more turn and talk, okay? Just to, because this is 2 hours is a long time. And in your turn and talk, if you are white, my question for you is, given all of this, what are your current accountability practices? Now, having a friend of color is not an accountability practice. Being married to a person of color is not an accountability practice. Accountability practice is a conscious, intentional understanding that this is coming at you 24/7, and you have to put some supports in place to keep you focused on it and to challenge you. So you are engaged in the work.
Welcome.
You attend affinity group. You attend a multiracial group. You engage with the writings and work of people of color. You have someone who coaches with you. You have a person of color who has agreed, and ideally you pay to help you see your racism. That's the accountability practice.
While I completely agree, Noisy Immigrant, along with breaking white supremacy to disintegrate social class and get equity, don't you think we also have to atomically break down hierarchical birth lineage, including gender-based hierarchy, and restructuring of fundamental religious fervor, which existed right since times of feudalism and agrarian societies, centralizing patriarchy as we know today, which has obstructed a harmony among all people? Absolutely. Here's the thing, though. Although patriarchy has been there for the longest time, well before white supremacy became the white supremacy became the operating system of the world. White supremacy currently is the if I had to say, if you think about an onion, it's the top layer. It's the layer that is it's the most influential layer. It's the most global layer, because capitalism is embedded with it. You could even call it white supremacist Christian patriarchy if you wanted to, because that was the basis of European colonization. But again, patriarchy is itself layered. White supremacy isn't particularly layered. Because patriarchal systems, the example I'll give you is a white woman has, there was a really good image there, right? Class, white people can overcome class and patriarchy or sexism much more effectively than say a person of color, because they have white privilege. That's an advantage.
And if you don't have one, just admit it, okay? All right, turn to the person next to you. And if you're a person of color, anything you do or don't want to say about anything. Welcome back. I'm so curious about how many white people just spent that 2 minutes credentialing themselves. All right. I made a claim earlier you know, I mean, if you're with me, you're probably like, okay, but I said that this internalized superiority comes out of my pores. And it's on me to figure out how. And you may be sitting here going, okay, I can give her that, but my God, I hope it's not coming out of my pores. What does that look like, right?
I just want to give you an example of a little bit of a bit of a microaggression that I experienced a few days ago. After Ginger's first operation, I was taking him for a walk, met my neighbor, a nice white lady, usually very nice, always very nice, obviously. They always are. And she was like, "Oh, what happened to Ginger?" And I was like, he had a surgery. He had a surgery because he swallowed a bottle cap, etc. And it got stuck in his thing, and he had to have a surgery. And then she was like, "Oh, that must have cost a lot of money." She knows about vet bills here. Yeah, and I was like, the first surgery was around 12 grand. And then she goes, "Oh my goodness, that's a lot of tickets. That's a lot of tickets back to India. That's a lot of flight tickets back to India, isn't it?" I was like, "What?" My immediate reaction was, I wanted to say, I think it would be more flight tickets back to England. I wanted to say it. But I was like, "Oh, come on. Come on now." You know, I just kind of shrugged it off.
So I want to give you a really amplified example of what it looks like to say that internalized.
I think they were trying to say that it was a lot of trips back to India, right? A lot of trips, a lot of tickets back to India. Bro, I don't even fucking go back to, like, I don't even go to India, bro. I rarely, like, I've been back to India like twice in my 30 years in Aotearoa. I've traveled the world, traveled to other places, so much more than I've been back to India. Like, insane to just say that to me. And I'm like, okay. Noisy, are you like me? I think of the greatest comebacks in the shower 3 days later. Yeah, Issa. Oh my gosh, yes.
Superiority is kind of seeping out of your pores. And if you can see it in this example,
the intent can be the nicest, most genuine intent to make a joke. Same sort of area, another neighbor. I grow out my beard. You guys have seen me with my beard. We were at a party a couple of years ago in one of the neighbors' places, and this lady went, "Oh, you have such a nice terrorist beard. Your beard looks like a terrorist beard." Yeah. They were drunk. They were drunk and said, my beard looks like a terrorist beard. I was like, I looked at Amber, and Amber was like, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything." Because, bro, I don't fucking step back from conversations like that. And then when Amber and I were at home, it's like, she's an old lady. Like, so what? This fucking racist old lady. Like, what am I supposed to do? Did you answer with Allahu Akbar? I should have answered with Inshallah. You know, like, giving her an Inshallah. Oh my gosh, bro. Fucking hell.
then maybe you could say, well, what would be my version of that? Okay? And I'm going to do it by returning to this picture. Because I can't find a better.
I am honestly, if I get compared, if I get, I'm wearing this kafia and they go, "Are you Muslim?" or something like that, from now on, my answer is going to be Inshallah. A slur that people used to use, or a way that people used to try to get to me was on LinkedIn. If I posted about my experiences with racism in the workplace, a few stories there, And if I typed it, they'll call me Dalit, like it was an insult. They'd call me Dalit. A lower in India, it's considered a lower caste to be Dalit. And it's like, why are you doing that, bro? That's just fucking, that's horrible. Why do you want to degrade other people in order to like be racist to me? You know, why do you want to degrade Dalit people who are just human beings trying to live their fucking life? And because they're trying to play to that caste system, right? They're trying to play to that caste system because they think that all Indians will get pissed off if you call them a Dalit. Because that's how hierarchy works in their mind, is white people hierarchy, right? Like if you call someone a lower thing that's considered by society to be like a lower class, then you'll get angry. Right now, the people who are being targeted the most are Muslim people. Islam is being completely targeted, and it's being treated like some sort of dogma to be Muslim, right? Like, I'm not Muslim. I'm an atheist. My parents are Hindus. But if someone calls me a Muslim, I'll just be like, so what? People use the weirdest shit as insults.
Visual representation of the embodiment of institutional power. I actually think literally this might be the most powerful group of people in the world. Certainly the decisions they make are profoundly powerful in this country. That's Mike Pence there in the middle of the table. They are making decisions, right, that affect millions and millions and millions of people, all right? So can you see that this is a good representation of what it means to say institutional power? You know, that whatever...
Protect your friends from racism. Firstly, stop seeing your friends as people who can't protect themselves. Second thing is educate other white people. I think instead of white on white violence, I think white on white education is the best remedy for the world. White on white education. Holy shit. The world will change so quickly.
Even if they were the nicest people in the world, by virtue of that homogeneity, they're going to embed implicit bias in the policies and practices, right? Because they simply don't even know other people's realities or needs. Okay. So if you walked into the room, would it be almost visceral to you? Can you also see that these men, I mean, by every axis, they're cis, white, men, they're probably multimillionaires, they probably went to the finest schools, and their entire lives they've been groomed to be sitting at that table and have always seen themselves as the smartest people in any room.
Miss V. Murray, if you find it hard to recognize your own racism, then people like Robin DiAngelo can help. But read, you know, those book clubs that you have where they're predominantly like white women book clubs, take like books about racism into those book clubs instead of reading about sweaty, cut up men with donkey cocks. I don't know, is that what women read in book clubs? I have no clue.
Okay, you all clear, aren't you, that people who grow up poor don't end up at that table? There may be an exception, but these were groomed from early age. I mean, come on, Bill Gates' son has every opportunity, regardless of whether he's mediocre or not, right? So this lifetime of being groomed to be at that table, I would feel it viscerally, that kind of superiority. If I walked into that room, I would find it an intimidating room to walk into.
As an avid bookworm, I take offense. I was just scrolling and heard donkey cock. Oh, Megan.
Okay, and while I can't know this, I believe that they don't see anyone of value missing in terms of race or gender. And I think if you suggest it to them, you really should get some white women and some men and women of color in this room. I actually think that they would feel contempt. Whether they would admit it or not, I think they would feel contempt. It would be just below the surface.
Erratic Cookie. White fear is about why American politics are, so back and forth between Donald Trump, especially post-Obama, why it swung to Donald Trump that much. And then again, Biden, at the end of Biden, why Trump was elected again. And also it highlights this whole replacement narrative, the whole replacement narrative, which is that by 2043, America is going to be a minority majority country, which is terrifying a lot of white America at the moment. Hence why you're getting the type of politics you are in America. It's a really good read about American politics and what drives American politics. It's good.
Annoyance at the least, and
it's
I
a
don't
short
think
read
they
as
see
well.
That as valuable. And nothing's ever given them the message that it's valuable to include. Right? Is that just kind of clear to you? Is it fair to say? I mean, again, I don't know them, but I'm pretty confident. Right? So that's kind of what it looks like. And as a woman, okay, I'm going to go to gender now for just a minute. I'm a cis woman, if I walked into that room, like I said, it would be visceral to me. And let's imagine that they were just, somebody mentioned at some point that maybe they should have a woman in their group.
Yeah, Stephen Miller's in that photo, yeah.
And so, they needed to discuss that for a couple of years. They needed some data collection and some focus groups. But they finally agree, well, okay, the optics are not good. We probably should get a woman in there. So they finally get one, and it's you. Okay, so for all the people who identify as women in this room, your job is go in that room and help them see that they'd put it like this, their gender bias in case they had any, and you'd be seeing it as they want me to tell them when they're being sexist. So you think about 2 weeks in, you'd have a nice long list of all the sexist patterns and dynamics that you experienced in that room. And if you shared that with them, you think they'd receive that really well? Okay, so then you think you'd ever do it again? Okay. So just all those dynamics is very, very clear to me that all that socialization be seeping out of their pores. Right? So for all the women in the room that could relate to that example, now I want you to imagine that this is the group. They really
sounds like propaganda. Yeah, you've got to dig really deep, Logie. On this one, I would just suggest dig deep on this one. Because I know it's easy to go into like that mode of this is propaganda. Because I think it's tough to engage with this, especially if you're a white person. I think it's tough to engage with this. It's confronting to engage with this. Usually it's just like, you may say, okay, I already know all this stuff, but engage with it. Genuinely engage with it. Because it's important. It's really important. And I say this not as someone trying to indoctrinate anybody. It's just what she's saying is literally every brown person or black person that's in this live right now is like, yep, that's normal. I can guarantee you, every brown and black person that's here watching this video will be like, yep, I know exactly what this is about. I have experienced this in my life. I know what this is about. Every single brown and black person right now in this in our live across, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, every single one will identify with this, what this lady's saying. But it will be, I think it'll be very confronting for white people.
Really need a woman of color on their board. Women of color, you're going to go in there and be the only one who helps those white women.
By the way, I was the chief technology officer. I became an exec when I was like 31, and I burnt out when I was about 35. And in every exec room that I was in, I was the only person of color. Only person of color, and I was the technology guy. In every room I was in as an exec, I was the only person of color. Every table.
See their racism? Does that sound good? That doesn't sound good to you? If you walked in the room, would a lifetime of internalized white superiority be visceral to you? Right? My point is that I can be in this room experiencing everything that I mapped out, and I can be in this room perpetrating the same thing. White women, we do not land any more lightly on people of color. White women, we have not been good allies in any consistent way, and there is not a universal sisterhood. And I think when we don't back people of color, that the hurt and the betrayal is deeper. Because we have a potential way in through sexism, but we so often use it as a way out. So use it as a way in, use it to figure out and to connect and to draw those, but not to exempt yourselves. Again, I can be experiencing oppression in this room and perpetrating in that room. Right? Right. Are you here right now? Is this what you're thinking? I know my sister is. All right.
Miss V. Murray, the question that's up on the board that everyone is laughing at is, okay, I get it. Now what do I do? What has enabled you not to know what to do about racism? Thanks, Noisy. Agreed. I'm not white. I feel she is justifying status anti-racism without talking about community pro-racism building. The thing about, like, brown and black people need to understand that it's so normalized for us that we often forget that white people just don't know what the fuck it is, right? Like, they just don't know what it is. It's just so normal for us. And one thing I found myself doing when I was in white spaces, especially when I was an exec, is I began to look for validation from those spaces, to see, to try and fit in those spaces as best as I could, overcompensated. And because belonging in those spaces meant so much to me. And when you start overcompensating, and a lot of brown and black people do this. It's because we have had to fucking work that much harder to get there. Right? When we're in that space, we want to prove ourselves. Even better, even more than anybody else.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Okay? So one of the big things here, Logie, all I will say to you is, don't downplay that feeling. You know, when you hear someone giving you that microaggression, you don't have to ignore it. You don't have to be like, oh, you know, I'm hard. I'm a hard person. I can take it. It's okay. Move on. It's not that important. You don't have to be that way. You can confront it. It's not woke. Like, to me, when people say I'm woke, the only thing I think about is they're too spineless to use the slur they actually want to. Right? And then when black and brown people follow that and go, yeah, oh, that's woke. Oh, that's woke. I can only see a deeply weak black or brown person that has decided that they would much rather fit in to a culture of racism and bigotry instead of confront the racism and bigotry. That's what I see when I see people who are blacks for Trump or Indians for Trump. They've chosen to be validated in a white space. When I look at Vivek Ramaswamy, that's what I see. They are actually cowards.
New follower detected.
They are cowards because they have chosen not to confront it. And the more people who choose not to confront that racism, the more space it creates for that. It creates more space. So your choice to not confront and just like brush it off and say, bro, that's just some woke shit because you heard some other cool guy, some other, group that you're with or some community you're with say it. Maybe you listen to Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson, and in Tucker Carlson's chat, they're like, oh, woke. And then, Tucker Carlson's talking about pro-Palestine and anti-wokeness, and you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You don't have to be like woke to be pro-Palestine. When you're in spaces like that and people say shit like that, you can be one of two things. You can either confront it by a really incredible way of confronting that is reflection. You have to reflect. So you have to remove yourself from that space. Or the second option is you choose to partake in it. And a lot of times brown and black people get sucked into those spaces and they choose to partake in it. Don't partake. Do not fall into the trap of thinking someone like a Tucker Carlson is a good human being because he is giving Palestinian. He's talking about Palestinian genocide. Don't fall into that trap, because on the other hand, he's saying shit like, we should expand ICE. Hey, Pax, welcome. So any person like that who is showing any sort of like this fake empathy towards the Palestinians, and then turn around and justify violence against people of color in different ways, they're not being genuine about their advocacy for Palestine. They are not.
All right, I get it. Okay, now what do I do? That's the number one question.
We need to stop compartmentalizing. We need to stop compartmentalizing racism. We need to stop compartmentalizing bigotry. You can't say, oh, yeah, he's fine on Palestine. He's fine on Palestine, but he's not on ICE. But I like his thoughts on Palestine, so I'll just switch on when he's talking about Palestine. Don't do that compartmentalization, because you're validating that person by being there when they're talking about Palestine. You're validating them. So when they do talk about that other shit, when they do talk about that ICE stuff, there's more people there because you validated them.
I get when I give a talk, and I got to tell you that I find it a very problematic question. I think it's a disingenuous question. I think most white people aren't going to do anything different. No, you're just going to keep smiling at people. No, honestly. I mean, prove me wrong. I hope you prove me wrong. And you know, part of being white is that you have that choice, and most of us are going to make that choice. So here's what I'm going to offer you. I didn't do this earlier, but it's getting late.
But I'm going to say this to every brown and black person in the chat. The moment you compartmentalize racism, the moment you say, oh, I'm going to let this one go, the moment you take part, you are enabling it. You are enabling it. The moment you shrug off when someone uses the N-word, when you're at a table, say a work party, and someone, drops the N-bomb, and you're like, oh, no, don't do that. You're taking part in it. Walk the fuck out. Leave. Show them that you don't like it. You've got to understand. You can't let it happen. If it happens, you've got to call it out. It's not woke.
So, if you're white and you are going to make the choice not to do anything different, then I'd like you to go home tonight and look at yourself in the mirror, in the eyes, and say out loud, I choose to collude with white supremacy. And then just carry on.
My own half-brother dropped it on Thanksgiving 2015. Last time we spoke. Yeah, Onyx. Sucks. I know that my family name has been used by a racist piece of shit who has, been exec level. And I know my brother's experienced this too. And I got pissed off at my brother because I heard him being called that, and he was completely okay with it because obviously, for him, it's legitimacy. It's that validation of being in those spaces of power. It's our last name. Ravi Shankar is my last name. And this man who my brother saw as his mentor introduced my brother. This was 10 years ago, but has used that same phrase over and over again. Introduced my brother to a room of executives as Ravi Shankar, the wanker from Sri Lanka. And my brother didn't push back. I had to hear that shit because I would sit there and this guy would drop that shit every single time. I wrote about it on my LinkedIn. When I finally started writing about white supremacy, when I finally started writing about my experiences with racism in this fucking country at the exec level, this is the kind of shit you have to tolerate in order to climb the ladder as a brown person. This is the kind of shit you just have to be okay with to be part of the crowd, to be recommended, to be accepted into spaces of power. You have to prove that you are an obedient little brown fucking Indian to be allowed to be in that space.
But do it with honesty, because there is no neutral place. Right? Thank you. The default is racism. It's
White lady comes in chat and goes, I grew up in this country and I wasn't brought up to be racially biased. Comes into a brown person's chat and calls him racist and goes, oh, that's not racially biased. Bro, just shut the fuck up. Scroll away, please, and go to the Nazi chat. You'll enjoy that a little bit more, Watchdog Kitty. It's a couple of swipes away. It's a couple of fucking swipes away. The Nazi live is just below. Swipe away. Stop lecturing me, lady. Get some rest. Go drink your wine somewhere else.
It's not an aberration, it's a norm. And so anything of carrying on is to contribute to the default, okay? And I mean, I hope that motivates you. But if this is your question, my question back to you is, how have you managed not to know? It's 2019, and the information is everywhere, and people of color have been telling us forever. How have you managed not to know? How have you managed to be a full functioning adult and not
Miss V. Marie, this is for you.
Not know what to do about racism? Because I think we actually have to work not to know. We have to work not to see, right? It's a willful not knowing. And what would you do about anything you had the remotest interest in finding out something about? You would Google the shit out of it, okay? I mean, you're watching a movie, right? And is Keanu Reeves still alive? I don't. For a lot of us white people, just looking it up is to break with the apathy of whiteness, right? So my offering that back is meant to challenge you. Right? People of color have been telling us what to do for.
White lady goes, you can call me white lady all you want, brown boy. Fuck, these people are just like cartoon characters, bro. They don't even understand how fucking racist they are.
Forever. Their work is everywhere. But it's also a sincere question, because if you take out a piece of paper and you actually
I was at least respectful and called her a white lady, you know? She called me a brown boy. I'm fucking 40 years old.
To write down why you don't know, you're going to have a map. Nothing on it will be easy or simple. But there it is. Number one, I wasn't educated on any of this. Okay. What are you going to do about that? Number two, I don't talk about these things. Number three, I don't have cross-racial relationships.
White lady is an insult? Really? You think white lady is an insult? Oh, like that.
Number, right? I haven't cared enough. I don't want to feel guilty. Just put it all down there.
It's like, hey, boy, you know, you brown boy. That's what she really meant. You brown boy, you know, like the proper boy.
Then start to look at it. So if I don't want to feel guilty is on your list, my list, right? Wasn't educated, don't talk, right? Don't have people color my life, haven't cared enough. I forgot this is a new slide. Then what I'm going to offer you is a very different framework that will change that.
Boy as in slave.
So internalize this, put this under that dock, and I do believe it will transform so much of this, right? So strive to internalize a framework of humility. And by the way, you're going to want to take pictures, which is just fine. You can literally...
Oh, yeah. God dang, boy. You keep picking that goddamn cotton, you hear me? Or I'll whip you, boy. God damn.
Download all those lists that I've done so far from a handout on my website. Just go into the resources tab, and this one's called White Fragility, A Guide to Feedback. Put it on the table next time you have a work meeting.
Hey, Sammy.
All right. Ibram Kendi, stamped from the beginning, says a racist policy is any policy with a racially inequitable outcome. By that measure, all our policies are racist. So get them on the table, put the handout about white fragility on the table with it, and go for it. All right. Racism is a multi-layered, hierarchical system infused in all aspects of society. Nothing has exempted me from the racial hierarchy I live in. The question is not if, but how. Thinking in terms of good people versus bad people is not useful. White people are not objective on racism. I am not objective. Everyone has bias. Most of it's unconscious. I have unconscious bias. Racism is complex. I don't have to understand it for it to be valid. White comfort maintains the racial status quo, so discomfort is important. But I must not confuse comfort with safety. I am perfectly safe in conversations of racism. I think safety is an illegitimate word to come from the mouths of white people on this topic, and I think it perverts the true history of harm. Yeah? My analysis must be intersectional and accountable. It's on.
I wonder how many of those people in those leftist fucking spaces, I'm bringing this up because I'm pretty salty about this. How many of those people in leftist spaces, those fucking people who call themselves communists, who gloat about Bashar al-Assad, who gloat about Xi Jinping, and who gloat about Kim Jong-un, can watch this fucking video and learn from it? I can guarantee you, those white leftists who are calling themselves hardcore communists, I can guarantee you they will struggle to sit through this. Many of them. Because the one thing they never ever fucking consider is their whiteness.
Me to continually educate myself. My learning is not finished. I bring my group's history with me. History matters, and it's a history of harm. Right? So rather than demand to be seen as a unique individual, I need to understand that I am also a white.
If you truly want to understand if a leftist space is inclusive, ask them if they've acknowledged their white privilege and white supremacy, and if they include white privilege and white supremacy in their understanding of society. And leftism in particular. It's so fucking important. Because this to me is a key thing. It is a key thing. Money doesn't have color, your mistake. Money has color, it's green. The American dollar is green. No, but money as in like the money you have doesn't have color, but where the money comes from definitely has color, because money is extracted by capitalism from the global south to the west, to the global north. And that's how money has moved, or wealth has moved, for 600 years. And that is because of European colonization. That has color. And I didn't enforce it. It was enforced upon me.
Individual having this interaction. Feedback on white racism is difficult to give. How I receive the feedback is just not relevant. It takes courage to break with white solidarity. White solidarity is the unspoken agreement amongst white people that will protect each other's racism.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about, white solidarity. Whenever you vote for true leftist policies, white people are voting against. White people are voting against their own privilege. And this is what I think a lot of white people realize at some stage. At some stage, white people will need to go through that barrier. Will need to drive through that barrier. Billionaires in India and New Zealand, you think billionaires, like out of the Forbes 500, how many Indian billionaires are there and how many white, let's just say, how many white billionaires are there compared to like people of color in the Forbes 500, Logie?
It takes courage to break with it. So how can I support those that do? And what I want to say to you, if you're white and you're choosing not to break with white solidarity, that's fine, but please get out of the way of other white people who are trying to. People of color's distrust in our schools and institutions is rational. We earned their distrust. There is a deep history of harm between our schools and children of color. Who does not know this? Who does not know that our schools have done terrible by children of color? And parents of color are delivering their precious, beautiful children into an institution with a deep history of
No,
harm.
Logie. No. That's not understanding what capitalism and white supremacy has done to India, buddy. Did you know that before the British got to India, and you're saying my country, India isn't my country. New Zealand is my country. But what you're saying again, that's that racism, that like subconscious sort of like place you go to. You got to understand that's pretty fucked up. Here, let me just say this. India, before the British got there, had 26% of global trade. Okay? That's India's share of global trade was 26% before the British got there. Do you guys know what it was when the British left and India got its independence in 1947? Do you know what that number was? It was less than 3%. The British sucked India dry. You don't understand how big the inequities are. It isn't how many billionaires there are. Because even if you look at billionaires from a percentage perspective, it proves my point. You're just saying dumb shit, Logie. But what you have to understand is the reason why the world is the way it is. Why there are students right now on the streets in India protesting their government. All of these sorts of things matter. You're just using a number in a wrong way, by the way. You're using the billionaire number to prove your point, but it's actually proving my point. No, the British stole a lot more than that, man. The British stole what today equates to $63 trillion. $63 trillion US dollars is what the British stole from India. Trillion, not billion, trillion.
Harm towards those children. So earn their trust if you're a teacher. Don't get your back up because they automatically don't trust you. Okay? It's rational. Given socialization, it's more likely that I am the one who doesn't understand the issue. People come in the room, can you imagine if white people would just take up that one? Okay. Racism hurts people of color, even kills people of color 24/7. Interrupting it is more important than my feelings, ego, or self-image. Yeah? And I do believe if we could internalize this framework, not only would our interpersonal relationships change, but so would our institutions.
White leftists need to understand this one thing, okay? If you're in a leftist space, white leftists, just remember, the moment you stop being a leftist, you can always rely on your white privilege. You can always turn that privilege back on. You may not even have turned it off. Silver Star, thank you so much. Sorry, Mama Sunshine, thank you so much for the silver stars. You can turn that off. You can always rely on your white privilege when you decide, right? But the people in marginalized spaces, the actual marginalized people, they can't just get out of that space and be okay.
Because we would see that they do. So I want to be really clear that as a result of this work, I am confident to say that I do less harm. I still do harm, but I do less of it. And I'm not defensive at all when I do it, and I have very good repair skills. And that has built trust, right? And less harm could be one more hour on my beloved friend Darlene's life that she didn't take my nonsense home and agonize all night long about whether it was worth it.
Yeah, you're not criticizing. You're being bigoted. No, Logie, stop. You're being bigoted because you don't understand how the capitalist system is built. You think capitalism is like this all-inclusive system. No, it's got white supremacy embedded right in it. Wealth is centralized in Western nations for a reason. And you glorifying capitalism is glorifying white supremacy. So you're not just taking part in this like system that was built to make everyone feel great and, for the working class, blah, blah, blah. No, you're taking part in a system built by white supremacy. You're not acknowledging that. You're just saying, oh, yeah, billionaire in India, great.
To talk to me or not. And we see stress-related illnesses and life expectancy impacted by that, right? Less harm is no small thing. Okay? So I have a final offering for the Oakland progressives.
Niceness is not anti-racism. Niceness is not anti-racism.
Niceness is not courageous. There's nothing courageous about niceness. You won't be actually seen as particularly nice if you push racism onto the table. I'm not saying don't be nice, better than, be nice. But that's not anti-racism, right? In some ways, racism depends on white people just being nice and carrying on, right? It takes strategic, intentional action and courage. And so I thank you for being here, and I would like to leave you with another image of a transformed world. Thank you.
Yeah, you're still talking about money. You're not talking about systems. You're talking about money. Your problem is you've turned money into your god. You may be an atheist, but your money has become your god. And currency isn't, diversify isn't changing that view. Money has become the center of your being. And that's where you got to understand that once that is the case, then you're never going to get out of that mindset of like understanding systems. A lot of atheists have religious mindsets. Yeah, because capitalism, in order to take part in capitalism without criticizing it, you have to be, it's like being in a cult. You've just replaced the God in the sky with the stock market. You've just replaced the God in the sky with the stock market. The stock market is your God. So capitalism and religion have, there's been studies of brain patterns when thinking about certain things. When people think about religion, they have a certain brain pattern. When capitalists think about capitalism and money, it's a very similar brain pattern. Okay, so capitalism itself is a religion. It's a cult. Because it takes a cult to make people do horrible shit and think it's okay. Like it's justified. Okay, this is one that I want to leave all of you with. This is a conversation about why white progressives are part of the problem. This is a conversation that Mehdi Hassan had. With this doctor. And with Dr. Robin DiAngelo. This was 5 years ago, but very relevant.
Robin DiAngelo, thanks so much for joining me on the show tonight. Your big bestseller was
Take care,
White
Amanda.
Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. Your new book is called Nice Racism, How Progressive White People Perpetuate Racial Harm. In the new book, you write, quote, I'm often asked why white people should listen to a white person on racism. So let's start there. What is your answer to that question? Why should they?
Well, let me start by being very clear that I do not believe white people will ever understand what we need to understand about racism if we're not listening to Black people and other people of color. From a very early age, they have to understand my reality, and unfortunately, I have not had to understand theirs. And as an insider, I do have a take, an understanding of it that they can't have, and we need all pieces of this puzzle at the table.
So early on in the book, you relate a self-critical anecdote about how you once behaved at a dinner party with a black couple, I believe, where afterwards you'd realized you'd spent much of the evening talking about awful racist things some other people you knew had done. Is it your view that what you call such racialized moves or covers in the book by quote-unquote woke or progressive white people, that is a common thing? And is it witting or unwitting in your view?
I think it's definitely a common theme. I have certainly gotten feedback across my life about my enactments. I have observed countless other enactments. Many, many, many Black people and other people of color have written exhaustively about their frustration with this kind of well-meaning, implicit kinds of racism. I think it's unwitting. The impact is still debilitating. It's still powerful. It still undermines. In some ways, intentions are less relevant than the impact of our behavior.
And Robin, in this Trumpian era we now live in, we see more visible, maligned racism and ethno-nationalism and xenophobia in America, even a reactionary moral panic over quote-unquote critical race theory. Some people might wonder why you're focusing on well-meaning white progressives when those who are not well-meaning, as you say in the book, are growing and emboldened, and I would add violent. You go into this in the book. Can you explain to our viewers why?
Yeah, and this is a great thing to understand. This is so important. Those well-meaning leftists, right? The well-meaning people who I shouldn't be focusing on. I should be focusing on the people who call me a curry muncher. Well, here's why the well-meaning people are still important to talk about.
Why here?
For three key reasons, and I do not want to minimize the terror of that growing movement, and it is definitely growing. But in my 20-plus years of being engaged in these conversations and research and observing and listening, there's a theme that is expressed by Black people and other people of color, and that is the theme of exhaustion. And that exhaustion comes from the more implicit forms, the everyday forms. Black people are not likely to be around white nationalists. They're not likely to be around people who explicitly express racial animus. And in some ways, it's on the table. It's easier to protect oneself from those forms of racism.
Yes.
The unconscious forms are much more challenging. And again, they're much more daily. Another reason is that I see that white people like to take as many exit points as we can. And a common one is as soon as you are confronted with the reality of your own complicity, you want to move to the more extreme forms. Well, what about why? I do not and could not claim to represent every aspect of this profoundly complex issue. My focus is on the more implicit forms. And that brings me to the third reason, and that is that I am a classic, well-meaning white progressive. I know intimately, both through my own enactments, through feedback, and through observation, those forms, and that is what I focus on. They're harder to see, easier to deny, and therefore we need some help.
You're right about the kind of harder to see and easier to know. I mean, I, as a brown immigrant, definitely would say it can be more frustrating dealing with the kind of implicit racism from well-intentioned people who don't realize it than from your explicit Trump-like figure who kind of...
Yeah, like this is where I'll say, I find it easier to identify and actually deal with people who are just like, who call me boy, like those fucking people. The people who piss me off and the people who drag me into the fucking conversations I don't really want to be dragged into are the well-meaning leftists. Are the well-meaning fucking leftists who say the most dumb shit like, don't be such a race essentialist when talking about white leftism, or just it's like, bro, you literally, by saying don't be such a race essentialist, you're enabling racism. And I have to like argue with them because they have some fucking intellectual points about when Karl Marx fucking pointed it out or something. And then they'll go, oh, in Mao thought, or in Xi Jinping thought, or Ho Chi Minh. I'm like, bro, you're a white fucking person. You are about as close. You are about as close to fucking Ho Chi Minh than I don't want to say what I was going to say, but it's not close.
I take for granted. That's a very fair point. But consider this. Something that strikes me about the book Nice Racism is that conservatives might actually agree with a lot of your critique. I wonder whether you see the weird overlap that I saw. They see
it's just like, tone down the resistance talk, bro. Tone the fuck down. Tone the resistance talk down. Okay, you're not a Hezbollah fighter. You're not Hamas. You're not the Houthis in Yemen. You're not fucking Ho Chi Minh. Just because you recited the Communist fucking manifesto does not make you those people. You are not Gerald Horn. You are not Frantz Fanon. Have some shame.
A lot of white progressives, for example, out on the streets protesting, and they say they're virtue signaling. They're trying to be woke. They're trying to out-woke each other. They're trying to romanticize minority cultures. And you kind of call that out too, don't you, in the book? Isn't that a lot of what you're critiquing too?
Yes, but the agendas are different. And what I would say is that the agenda from the right is to protect the status quo. The agenda on the left, hopefully, is to challenge the status quo. And systemic racism is the status quo. Within that work, we want to get this as right as we can. That's not completely possible, but we could do better. We don't want to inadvertently reinforce the problem as we seek to challenge it.
One of the fiercest criticisms of your work, and it's not just from conservatives, but some liberals too, and to be fair, you discuss it in the book, is the idea that you're perpetuating a quote-unquote race essentialism. That in your view of the world, we can't escape our racial groups. We're locked into them. We are black, white, Asian, and that group identity trumps whatever individual non-race-related characteristics we may have, which some would say is a pretty depressing view of the world.
Well, I don't think that racism is going to end in my lifetime, and I think in some ways the kinds of hopefulness that led to the complacency we saw following the civil rights movement has led us to this moment, which looks in a lot of ways pre-civil rights.
But a lot of people of color, even, not just forget white people for a second, a lot of people of color might say, I want to be able to have relationships with people around me, colleagues, students, friends, without always having to worry about which racial group I'm in. And if you read your stuff, some people come away thinking you can only see the world, according to Robin DiAngelo, in racial groups. I'm just wondering, is that how you see it or no?
I think we could use much more awareness of the reality of our racial positions. They shape the way we see the world. They shape...
Whether we like it or not, as brown people, you can't just ignore that we are categorized. We are categorized. Society categorizes us, and our outcomes are dependent, are categorized. Education outcomes, wealth, all of these sorts of things. Maori people can't just go, okay, I don't want to see the world through a racial lens anymore. The society itself is categorizing them. So if you choose to ignore that, then you're ignoring the system itself that you are being held against. You can't ignore the system. Well, you can, but it's not going to serve you well. It may serve you well, but when you look at it at a bigger scale, in a larger population with outcomes, it doesn't serve us well. We've got to understand that these systems are there. They're not going to go away by just wishing it away.
Our experience in the world. There's not some objective universal experience that we're all having. We could literally predict whether my mother and I were going to survive my birth based on the fact that my mother and I are white. It is significant, and we don't want to hold absolutely everything at all times, but I think we need to embrace it a little more than we have been.
You spend a lot of the book relating some really dispiriting experiences from racial sensitivity workshops that you run or attend. I wonder, is there any evidence out there about those workshops and the value that they deliver? Because there is an argument on the left.
Logie, bro, why are you here, man? Like, honestly, like, you're just saying dumb shit and you're expecting me to react. Why are you here, bro? Like, I've spent so much energy talking to you and you've just not listened. Like, right now, you're making me waste my time.
That facilitating those kind of workshops, especially for corporations, for government organizations, you're giving them a racism get-out-of-jail-free card almost. They can say, well, we paid for all this stuff. Look what great employers we are. And I should point out for our viewers that last year a study found that U.S. companies spent $8 billion on diversity and inclusion, and diversity consultants earn somewhere in total, cumulatively, around $500 million a year. So I'm wondering, where's the evidence or data that you have, because you're the expert on this, I wonder, on those workshops, on diversity training, because a lot of people are cynical about that stuff. So I'm just wondering, how do we know it works?
Well, I don't think it does work if it's not sustained and consistent. So if it's a one-time thing, a check the box kind of approach, it's not going to keep going. It has to be sustained. And I really would have us question why we think there would be a simple answer or solution. We could take this workshop, or we should be able to take this workshop and figure out something as perennially complex and deep and enduring.
Yeah, corporate DEI has been a massive failure because the people who have benefited the most from corporate DEI are white women. It didn't achieve what it wanted to because it was a checkbox. It wasn't something that benefited anybody other than bring more white women into the workforce. They do drag story hour and pat themselves on the back here. Like, this is literally a Forbes article. Check it out. Who benefited from DEI? And it was predominantly white women.
And highly adaptive as racism. It is highly adaptive. It responds to challenges and it keeps on keeping on. Look where we are right now. Look at voter suppression.
Yes.
Look at actual laws enacted that say you can't acknowledge that racism exists, or laws that say you can't teach the history of the civil rights movement. It's a moving target in so many ways. And so anytime we think one size fits all that's going to address it, we're going to get in trouble.
And I agree with a lot of your analysis here. Totally see where you're coming from and agree with a lot of what you're saying. But at the same time, I have to be honest, Robin, if I were asked to participate in a seminar or workshop at work and on racism and was separated out into a room with only other people of color while white people went into another room, I would find it kind of uncomfortable. And I know, again, you discuss in the book that there's this kind of white panic, I think you call it, white people panic when they're asked to separate out and talk amongst themselves. But isn't there also a real danger that for the sake of a well-intentioned goal of reducing racism, we might be bringing back in racial segregation via the back door?
Well, what you're talking about is a technique called affinity groups. It's actually a fairly advanced technique. It's not common in kind of a mainstream diversity training. But, you know, we are positioned differently within this construct. We are socialized differently. As a white person, I have received across my life and internalized the message of superiority. And that's a very different message than people of color are given. And so there are aspects of this work that we do need to do separately among ourselves, among other people who share our identities, and without the pressure of making mistakes or hurting other people. You know, there is not going to be anything on a topic as charged where investments are as deep in both challenging and protecting as the issue of racism.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so fucking true. Okay. I think that's enough for today. That was a lot. That was a lot. What is her name? Her name is Robin DiAngelo. Dr. Robin DiAngelo. That was a lot. It's pretty bad. Just the amount of people that come in here and, you know, my challenge to all of us, is Logie, just stop, bro. You're wasting my fucking energy. Honestly. You're wasting my energy now. My challenge for all of us is when we're in leftist spaces to challenge everybody in that space. To truly acknowledge, especially white leftists, to acknowledge the role that that white supremacy and white privilege plays in our society. Like, if we do not do that, I think we won't understand what sort of space we're in. I think that's a fundamental thing for leftists to understand, is the role of white supremacy and white privilege, the role of white supremacy and white privilege in building the world that we have today. If we don't understand it, if the people there don't understand it and don't acknowledge it, you are in a space that aren't truly leftist. They can't LARP as leftists. They shouldn't be allowed to LARP as leftists if they can't acknowledge the role of white privilege and white supremacy in our society. It's fundamental, in my opinion, because that acknowledgement is important to understand why marginalized communities are marginalized. Otherwise, it's a massive LARP. It's a massive LARP. And I hope what you take away from this is if you don't push that, if you don't, and you accept that it's just the way it is, and you just accept it, well, you're enabling it. You're enabling racism. You can't just accept that people haven't acknowledged their privileges. It's ignorant. How can a leftist space be ignorant to their own privileges? I just don't get it. So that's my challenge to you. That's my challenge to you. You have to acknowledge this. You have to make sure that leftist spaces understand white supremacy and white privilege. If they don't, you are not in a leftist space. You are not in a leftist space. Okay. All right. Who are we rating, folks? I'm going to ask this very carefully. Who are we rating? Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. That was heavy. That was heavy. It was a lot. It's draining to have these conversations, but super important. Oh, yeah, we can do Redolent. We can do Redolent. I haven't rated Redolent in a while. Redolent Thought. Boo, I just got here. Oh, shit. I don't know if that's Redolent Thought. Is that Redolent _ Thought? Is this Redolent Thought? Did I get it right? Is that Redolent Thought? Oh, shit. Wait. What? Is this his username? Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much, everybody. Guess I'm late. Redolent Thought? Yeah, that's him. That's him. Good. Good. Take care, Ladybird. Thank you so much, Auntie Wash. Thank you so much for being here, Auntie Wash. Appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, mods, for making this an enjoyable experience. Do you think geography also plays into the fabric of leftist white supremacy, as in someone in Argentina and Australia may have a difference in fundamental perceptions? Just a thought for next time. I'll have a think about it. Thank you, Uncle Lily. See you again tomorrow, Evangelist. Yeah, for sure. Take care, Issa. Take care, everybody. Raiders. Get ready. 4, 3, 2, 1. Enjoy. Kakite, Pomarie. TikTok. Kakite. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. I will catch all of you soon, okay? My headache. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Thank you, mods. Pomarie. Kakite. See you, Redlocks.
Global consciousness. Free Palestine.